carbon capture machine, and I did the math on it real quick. Basically, in order to capture the carbon emitted by like a single tank of gas that's blown into the air, I think it's like 56 cents or something like that. Now, of course, there's like all these like hidden costs that I didn't rough into my calculation because I was just doing some napkin paperwork, napkin math. But at the same time, if you told me, hey, we could cut carbon emissions by transportation down to 0, and all you have to do is pay 56 cents in order to subsidize the carbon capture machines that we're going to build, I wouldn't give a shit. I'm just whatever works.
That 56 cents per ton?
I could look it up and try to napkin math it again real quick.
All right.
While he's doing that, go ahead, sir. Soyadle is next.
Hey, so I think we've got a little bit of a numbers problem when it comes to how EVs can contribute to saving the planet. But let's be clear, there's no single action that is going to save the planet. It's just another tool in the toolbox. If we are in fact talking about saving the planet and not just like dollars and cents, then yeah, EVs will contribute. However, they are not the most effective way of reducing emissions from transportation, and they're not even going to make a dent in what people do on a day-to-day basis. They're not going to make economic sense when it comes to reducing the glut of traffic that we have out there. They can reduce our emissions. They can improve our responsibility, but we need to switch to alternate modes and multimodal transport to actually make an impact both in traffic and in climate. When it comes to like dollars and cents, where your pocketbooks matter, that's another thing. I'm a leftist, but I understand we live in capitalism. And so if I'm going to advise a city of what to build next, it'll be something else. It's certainly not more roads, maybe some more bike paths, and try to get people to do that. That's my go-to. I put a nice image of my electric bike up in the shared group chat. Take a look at that.
All right, thank you very much. Next is Systrom.
I mean, in my perspective, it's I have to say that if you're looking at a global, I guess, envelopment or replacement for fossil fuel based vehicles, EVs are not really where we're going to be. I definitely have to side with we need to convert to more multi-facet transit, whether it's a transit system that is more train driven transit system or more of a shared car system. That's really the only way we're going to be able to bring the carbon footprint down enough to where EVs could really matter. Plus, we also have the limited resource factor, right? So EVs themselves, there's only so much materials that we can gather globally to be able to offset what we need to be able to create the batteries for EVs, which is kind of also something Counterport said. There's a lot of different factors, right? And so as EVs are kind of a cool idea and they are a good source of making yourself feel better that you're doing something for the environment, as being a full replacement for what we're doing today, unless we change the way that we use vehicles or we change the concepts behind vehicles and how we interact, it's going to really be a limiting factor, because EVs can't one-for-one replace fossil fuel vehicles in the current dynamic and the way that we build the vehicles and the way that we use them. And again, the way the global change is right now with what's happening with other countries and that are major contributors to the resources that we need to be able to make the EVs just in general, that's also has to be taken into consideration of this being something as a long-term solution. So anyway, that's my nerd perspective on the situation. So,
hot damn, I love it. Before we get into the next part, we gotta welcome our good friend Lethy. He's joined us a little bit late, but it's great to see you here, sir. You can check him out on Twitch as Leithwaterkai. It's great to have you. How you doing, sir?
Doing good. Just really sore from a TRX band workout yesterday. It's killing me. But otherwise, glad to be here.
It is also a pleasure to have you here. So, well, first topic we're getting into is, are EVs, electric vehicles, something that is worthwhile in the investment, or, did we put the cart before the horse? Basically, is it the right thing to do or not?
See, I want to say it is the right thing to do. We just started doing it too late because the oil industry has been keeping us underfoot for a very long time. So now that we're finally starting to branch out from that, we may be moving a bit too fast, but unfortunately it happens to be very necessary because the reason why we're going to be getting into wars in the future is going to be over resources like this. So we don't want to have to invade another country for their oil ever again if we can avoid it. We don't want to end up in Afghanistan. We don't want to end up having to actually go to war with Mexico for resources at some point. So I think we can get an even distribution of hydrogen and electric vehicles to offset the resources that are being used because oil is a finite resource. And the sooner we come to terms with that, the better off we're going to be.
Alrighty, sorry, hit the wrong buttons. Just because iCal isn't here, I'll kind of throw my own 2 cents here. Largely, most of my opinions have been stated. Geopolitics is going to be a huge factor here because if the former Soviet space is making it to where you cannot get the materials you need, particularly like the nickel and the copper, to build out the electric grid, you got a problem. And then when you get into the other more modern senses, that some of these are a conversation in can we just change up the way that we move and interact? I absolutely agree with that. We are car country, but remind you that when the interstate was built and all these things were planned out, it was for a population half the size. We might want to revisit just simply reworking how we interact with our transportation. So there's my 2 cents. Ladies and gentlemen, open panel.
All right.
Yeah, so if I could... could I share my napkin math real quick?
Oh, yeah. I asked you. Go ahead.
So basically what it boiled down to was the average driver drives like 12,000 miles a year, and they do it at 22 miles per gallon, and they emit 4.6 metric tons of whatever. So what that boils down to, I believe it was like, if you do the math for the 22 miles per gallon, I think it boils down to like 522 gallons or something like that, is representative of the 4.6 metric tons emitted. So if you take that, it's $100 per ton. Metric ton in order to remove it from the atmosphere. And so, and this is like a 80% cost decrease in the past 5 years or something like that. So I think that I'd have to run the napkin math again, but basically I actually came out with like 20 cents, which is, I think, incorrect. I think I didn't carry the 4.6 or something like that.
No, you're right.
Point,
yeah, I think you're absolutely right, actually. And that reminds me, we had a similar factoid about this campaign right here, which is initiative 1631 in Washington. And our factoid was like 7 cents per gallon. So I guess that's, 56 cents per gallon for $100 carbon price. That's amazing. That's really good. And unfortunately, that initiative failed. It fell on its ass in Washington. And like 7 cents a gallon back in what was it? 2019. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but even conservatives were all against it all across the state.
Well, I don't have a problem with. Okay, so just to make this clear, I don't have a problem driving combustion engines until the day I die. I have nothing wrong with combustion engines. I think they're awesome. I think they're a great technology. I think they don't have as limited of range. I think the infrastructure already exists, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things are cool. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to hand a planet down to my son where we're getting like fucking 300 mile an hour fucking hurricanes and shit. That's the only thing I give a shit about. If we can, whatever gets us there, I don't give a fuck.
Based. Yeah, I'll go along with that. I don't think that. Carbon markets are really important. I don't think that they're a universal solution because first they're really politically difficult, but they're absolutely necessary. And I think the faster we get governments of the world to agree to like cross-border carbon markets, the better off we're going to be. The zinger that I wanted to throw out before you reminded me on my question was. I don't agree with Leith about hydrogen. Hydrogen is like 98% sourced from natural gas at the moment, and so it's still a fossil fuel. And you're not actually saving much CO2 unless you completely sequester the carbon when that hydrogen is formed from methane steam reforming. Now, if we can get clean hydrogen, actual pink, red, green, whatever non-fossil fuel sourced hydrogen, that'd be amazing. And here's the thing where I think we can all agree on is nuclear sourced syn fuels and hydrogen. Most amazing thing in the world. We could convert all of our diesel vehicles in America to methanol vehicles. It's a simple conversion. Change your diesel vehicle to a methanol conversion, and it's probably one of the easiest syn fuels to create. You can make it just from seawater, and we get both the hydrogen out of the H2O, and we get the carbonic acid has the CO2 that we need. So it's an amazing thing. Syn fuels from seawater.
Well, but I still have to, given the point of, as a society in the US, we need to change the way that we view our vehicle as well. We need to change the methodology of what we think we need as a society. Like, to be honest with you, I mean, if we could figure out a way to be a 1 car per family max, or even less than that, right? Because there's certain parts of the country where you don't really need a vehicle. There's a lot of things that you can do because you're so in an urban environment, you don't need the vehicle to be able to do the things you need to do. And especially due to the fact that now we're post certain situations, there are a lot more people that are working from home. So vehicle transportation in that way, there's a way for us to diversify the way that we consume and use transportation.
Can't believe I'm in a room with a bunch of George Soros cucks.
Okay, first of all,
ride the bus. First of all, eat the bugs.
Look,
yeah, eat the bugs, ride the bus, live in the box.
Look, just because I'm a conservative Texan doesn't mean I don't realize the factors that we're doing. Look, I'm in the same boat with you, man. I don't want to leave my kids and my kids' kids a screwed up planet, right? I'm sorry. Like, I would like to leave them with a planet, like, okay, this goes into my nerdness and like I like Star Trek and all this other stuff, but it also goes to the point I don't want to have somebody from some space future have to go save whales with a spaceship, right? I don't want that to be a thing, right? I'm sorry. To be honest with you, I want my kids to be able to grow up in a society and grow up in a world where they're providing for the planet, and the planet is providing for them in kind of okay, this might be contrite too, an avatar kind of symbiotic relationship, right? Because we're screwing up our planet. And I'm telling you this, like, I'm as conservative as it is, but there's a certain level. Like, I grew up riding on horses and ranching and doing all of that and hunting and being in reality as close to nature as possible when it's doing the things that I was doing when I grew up. And I want that same thing for my kids. This might be a really contrite idea, and I'm sorry, but that's just where I stand.
The sales pitch that has to be done is, Christians and conservatives used to be the stewards. So like Richard Nixon is the person who created the EPA. Teddy Roosevelt was the person who created the national park system. There are plenty of conservatives who were about the environment, but I would say what happened was in the 80s, greed became good. And all it became about is money. And as long as you could push the externalities out onto society, then it didn't matter. So who gives a shit? As a result, we have this really
I don't disagree with you.
psychopathic approach to resources.
Yeah, but I don't think it's just one party or the other, right? Because you have individuals who are on the Democratic side that think it's okay to fly around the planet on planes that put out more destruction, but they're like, oh, I pay $100 million a year in credits to offset it. It's like, okay, but you fly on a freaking plane that does more carbon damage than 50 Toyotas or 100 Toyotas.
How else is Leonardo DiCaprio going to find his 19-year-old girlfriend?
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah. I'm talking about, what's his name? The
actual politicians are doing this.
Yeah,
Jay
like,
okay. But everybody has everybody has hypocrisy. Everybody is going to do that kind of thing. And so for me, like the reason why I don't even bring those points up or whatever is because like I want the environmental movement to be manly, right? Like I want the F-150 Lightning. I think it does like 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds or some shit like that. The trunk is missing, so you can haul a bunch of shit inside it. I want the commercial with that to be like a guy double fisting like white monsters, chugging them, and then firing like fully automatic AA-10 fucking shotguns at bald eagles or whatever, and fucking like throwing his aluminum cans on the side of the road so people can feel manly about electric vehicles. But that's the thing.
No, it's got to be banana peels, because again, it can't be aluminum cans, because those should be put in recycling. So he throws the aluminum cans in a recycling bin, and he throws the banana peel out as he's driving along, because that's good for the environment. Because banana peel, it'll self-recycle, and hey, we got to hit all the points, man. We got to hit all the points.
Only if someone is driving behind him in a gas-using vehicle, like a fucking Hemi rolling coal fucking badass thing, and then it makes
the old classic Hummers.
Yeah, but it makes the Mario Kart fucking banana peel sound, and it's like, wee! And like the fucking truck spins out like that. Now we're talking about some fucking marketing here. But
yeah, I know, absolutely 100%, right? There were some Trojan commercials back in the day that are absolutely 100% in that vein. Like, that's the thing.
But that's the thing is like, so what we're talking about is, because I'm sure I'm not even looking at my chat right now, but they could be rebelling for all I know. And so I'm sure the thing is like, people, they don't want to think about losing their autonomy. They don't want to think about being inconvenienced. They don't want to think about, basically like the infrastructure that would have to be totally changed in order to do that. So the truth is, any solutions that come down the pipe, they have to be sold to people as easy as, so for instance, like the synth fuel or the carbon capture, it has to be like, hey, pay an extra 50 cents and you don't have to hear us talk about the fucking environment anymore. Like, sold. Fucking sold. I will pay an extra 50 cents if I don't have to hear you talk about that shit.
I will tell you something that's happening here in Texas. So supposedly the city called Plano, they're going to be putting in electric gondolas. Okay. It's like for real. Like they're literally putting it. They have
that is the worst mass transit system in the universe. That is a yuppie fucking amusement park ride.
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, they're trying.
You're going to get 6 people into each of those things. Like every 4 minutes, it's going to move less than 500 people a day. That's such a joke.
I mean, I get it, but supposedly it's supposed to be solar powered. So it's not going to be using a lot of electricity off the grid. There's supposed to be
solar power.
I know, right?
Those gondolas are going to grow on trees, aren't they? Oh.
I mean, I'm just saying, hey, I'm throwing stuff out there that they're doing. Everybody, they're trying, right? At least.
But here's the other thing, because like somebody in chat was like, oh, like we're a bunch of train cucks in chat. And I was just thinking to myself, it's like, I don't want to ride public transportation. Like basically, when I think of public transportation, what I think of is the one time that I went to fucking New York City, and we step up, my wife and I step onto the train for the first time. And there's this poor woman, like I'm not talking shit about her, but there's some like Dominican fucking cleaning lady, and she's asleep on the bench, but she's so tired from working so hard in the fucking rat's nest that is New York City that her tongue is lolled out and sitting on the fucking bench. And I'm just thinking to myself, it's like, how many Dominican cleaning ladies have licked the bench that I'm sitting on today? How many fucking homeless men have fucking jerked off on this thing? Like, I don't want to fucking be in this motherfucker.
I'm glad
like,
you went there. And I also want to get on the board of the Christian bandwagon because, as we know, it is harder for a rich man to get into heaven as a camel through an eye of a needle. So... and of course, we got big profit motive problems all over the place. The only solution is we need to convert to communism, and then more people are going to heaven, and we're going to eliminate the fossil fuel industry. There we go. Let's go.
Why communism. Don't you? Okay, hold on. All right, you just memed. I'm going to meme. Why don't you just speed walk life and then die and then go to fucking heaven, which will be a moneyless, stateless, classless society with the decommodification of basic human needs.
Actually, we need labor, and without labor, the whole planet's going to die. So don't kill yourself just yet. I said don't.
I mean, no. Okay. I'm going to tell you this. I mean, we're
think of the carbon reduction.
But we're in a population decline in most countries. We're in a population decline. especially if they are countries that have modernized over the last 30 years, right? So a lot of those countries, even China, and they're not telling people how many people they actually don't have, but they are decreasing, right?
Yep.
And in the United States, if it weren't for, don't hate me, if it weren't for the excessive amount of migration that happens into the United States, I'm going to call it migration and not what everybody else likes to call it. Because in reality, that's the only reason the United States exists, is because a bunch of people migrated here. Because there's not enough of my ancestors to even exist to even count that. But that's a whole other can of worms. Anyway, but we'll just say that if it weren't for that, our population would probably be in the same dynamic as Japan, Germany, England, and whatever you want to, UK, however you want to play that out. Like there's countries like France. The only reason that they have the correct population cap now is because there were so many people coming into France from other countries during that time when there was the great exodus.
You need to wrap it up so I can meme already. Jeez. So
I'm sorry. I'm trying to put in facts here before you really meme it out, so Tiberius doesn't. He at least knows I'm trying to pull my weight.
Yeah, no. So the thing about it is, like, I totally get that, but I it's not even that big of a meme. There's a fucking sniper trying to kill me. The shocking thing though is, like, everybody was like, oh, sub-Saharan Africa, has this like crazy birth rate and blah 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 and all that kind of shit. And that's obviously like the big concern. Lauren Southern talking about mass immigration of fucking Muslims and shit. And then I checked out like the recent demography and also like the demography for the past 200 years. Even like the Middle East and North Africa, which are sitting at like, 3 or 4 kids or whatever, they've taken like a 70% hit in the past 200 years. So like, so I'm pretty sure their trend is still going to be eat the McDonald's, have 2 kids, play on your PlayStation. Like, I think that's still going to be true.
So at this point, for all these people that are currently like, we need to make sure that we, start cutting. No, it's happening on its own. The more that societies start modernizing or using that, I guess, whatever you want to call it, westernizing, modernizing, the more societies start doing that, the larger decline that's going to happen. Because, to be honest with you, there's this great modern philosopher that I really like to listen to that basically says, no, this is some other guy. He lives in Colorado. And he's been trying to tell the world that, certain countries are going to collapse in a certain amount of time. And basically...
Ed Kaczynski. Got
it. Just say his name.
Wait, I'm not saying his name. You get to say his name.
Okay, it's Peter Zion. That's who it is.
Yeah, Peter Zion.
But
anyway,
my bad.
So basically, all of the stuff that he's been saying over the last 6 or 7 years, I've been watching the markets, dealing with all this stuff, looking at the different things that I've been dealing with. I will definitely tell you, it is he's not wrong. And if we don't get our crap together, we got to be real careful what we do in the next 5 years, 10 years. And
wait,
if we
how
don't,
so? With growth? What are you talking about?
Yeah, with if it weren't for the deals that, say, Trump did or Bush before him with the NAFTA and the different things like that have been in place, if it weren't for those deals that we've been working with, we probably would be in a larger decline than we are in the U.S. I mean, our dollar probably would have spun out maybe in 2008. We probably would have had a complete failure of our monetary system.
Are you just saying that, like, if I'm hearing you correct, you're just saying we need a lot of Hispanics in order to make up for the economic shortfalls that other countries are experiencing? Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, hey, if that's what you want to say, that's cool. I'm just saying we need to diversify our populations. Yes. I mean, if it means that we need a darker population, then maybe we need a darker population. I don't.
Let's go, 1 billion Americans! Yeah.
You know what? What do I know? I only look Jew on the outside, and I'm 6'3", so I'm Native American on the inside. So whatever.
Don't tell my chat that. They're not that bad. But
no. So my on my mom's side of the family, it's Horowitz and Cohen. So and on my dad's side of the family, they go by birds and bees. So whatever.
Yeah, but don't talk about like 1 billion Americans and population and Hispanic immigration, and then be like, oh yeah, I'm Jewish, by the way. Like that's that's gonna go up like a lead balloon. But the
I mean, hey, you know what? I mean, whether it does or not, it is what it is, right?
Well, and yes, and so that's where for me, I know we're way off topic at this point, but for
this goes into the counter. This technically goes in with that idea, right? So if we don't have the appropriate populations and we have a decrease in populations, that means there's already going to be a steady effect in how we use transportation. The more urban we become, the more integrated we become within urban societies, and the way that we're changing within the Western set, there's already going to be this movement as it moves forward, right? I mean, just look at different regions that are happening.
Okay, then what I heard right there is basically we need to build cities that don't suck.
Yes.
So
yeah, but that's impossible. We're humans. We don't know how to not build cities that don't suck.
No, I do think it's possible actually. So for instance, I think that like the rightoids have shat their pants about it already, but basically like having a walkable city where you could go to the grocery store or the city park or the entertainment spot or the movie theater or whatever, and having everything be close enough that you don't have to get in your car. Designing these things like intelligently, and then I would say still have cars, still have dickloads of cars, have one car, but then that thing can be used not half to 3/4 less than it's currently used. So it kind of does that. But then what we're talking about is like all the American cities that currently exist are designed around the automobile. So what you're talking about is building new communities and also changing the zoning laws that already exist in order to be new. And I just don't see any political willpower, or even, by the way, I don't even see like the knowledge that this is a problem in city councils or local governments or state governments or federal governments. I don't see anybody talking about this shit. It's
absolutely. I don't disagree with you on that. This is such the ideas and concepts, especially dealing with a lot of the community area level and the way that we do things. Yeah, there's a lot of archaic knowledge and understanding, and people are more concerned about whether they're putting certain information in schools on whether the school is located in a region that's close enough for the populace to be able to access the school without having to have 15 buses to get everybody to the school, right? So there's a whole rework that we need to do as a society in general to change our thought process on how we are going to achieve a better society, whether it's transportation, it's medicine, or any of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of problems that are going on. There's a lot of communities that don't have the three basic things, which are police, fire, and hospitals. Like there are areas that are literally falling apart because they don't have those three things. Transportation is the last thing on their mind because they don't even have the three basics. Right.
Yeah, quick mean all that we talk about in my city is freaking the housing deficit. We've got like 70,000 fewer homes than jobs were added. So we literally have like 5 figures or four figures of missing housing because we've gained so many jobs in Seattle. And all that the left around here seems to do is complain about how if you are a rezoning or pro urban development, that you're a big fan of the developers and you're just a greedy developer shill. So, come on over to the city. We love to like shit on our plans just in a different way.
Yeah. Sorry. I know other people want to get in. Right.
Yeah. I want to bring the Californians in on this one. Sorry, Connor. Let me get this for just a second. I want to get the Californians in on that particular topic because you guys are literally like home base for this exact fucking problem. And so definitely add.
Progressive.
Before you go there, I will outline this because this is something that I've noticed. The left doesn't want to talk about like redistricting and urban planning and any of that shit to a large degree because you're seen as like being pro corporate and getting your hands in with the developers, but the right doesn't want to have that conversation because they're like, oh well, this is big government. And the truth being said, if you are going to design cities, to have the ways that we're going to need to do it, you're going to talk about a shitload of planning, and you're going to talk about a shitload of zoning, and more particularly eminent domain, because you're going to have to reallocate where the movie theater is and where the schools are to actually make it to where people can live in this block for the housing development and this block for the commercial development. This is going to be a very, very hands-on type of governance. And Americans are not happy with that idea for the most part. Go ahead, sir.
But, well, that's what I was going to say. It's going to have to be new communities, because basically what we're going to have is we're going to have this like NIMBY shit where everybody's talking, and the deregulation shit is like, that's worse to me, where basically what you're doing in cities like Seattle or Los Angeles or San Diego or whatever, you're like, how can we cram more people into this by like destroying all the single family residences and then turning them into like multifamily homes? But let's not think about parking. Let's not think about cars. Let's not think about driving infrastructure. Let's not think about transportation. Let's not think about schools. Let's not think about any of that shit. That's worse to me, because all I see is rats jamming each other into the nests that they want to be a part of. Whereas I would say, basically, fuck all the overpopulated places. Let's talk about like, Idaho or Wyoming or some shit like that, where there's actually like land available for development, where you could come out there and you could start fresh and say, hey, listen, guys, like there's a huge problem with the way that cities are built. We want to build the city of the future in your backyard.
How many lanes are going to be on your highway that's in your single family? Is it going to be like Houston, where it's like all single family and 8-lane highways? Is that your plan?
No, I love I-5, the Californian like superhighway or whatever. I love the 5, but the truth is that you can't stack that many people on top of each other. It doesn't matter if you have 10 lanes or 20 lanes. You're going to fill that shit up. You can't if you're
car dependent, and that's
true.
That's the point that Systrom was making, is that we have to be able to also accommodate mass transit, and we have to also rely on mass transit. We have to make driving your car suck, and that means road diets. That means you know what you're not going to have.
Let me make you mayor of Seattle. What do you want to do?
Oh, hell yeah, I'm going to do this Seattle subway plan, and we're going to finish building out our huge Seattle subway vision map. That's number one. And we're gonna tax Amazon to do it. Sorry, it just got voted out by the corporations. But the reality is that yes, there is a way of doing it.
You've already been assassinated. You've already been assassinated with the heart attack gun.
Yeah, and I'm going to take the legislation that we just passed to increase, the ability for us to build, multifamily housing around every bus stop and train station. Except I'm not going to fuck it up like our Democratic Party just did and put all these covenants and weird restrictions around it that makes it really impractical, because we need to feel better and virtue signally about our bills. We don't want to do something. We just want to make ourselves look good.
Well, okay. So as a side to this, so for a person who actually did for 3 years take mass transit, or I basically took Ty has actually been down in my area, and he's seen the trains that we have that run down. But basically, for 2 years, I worked downtown and in Dallas, and I don't live in downtown Dallas. But I used to take the train every day into work. I would go up, and two of us would carpool. We'd rotate, and we'd carpool. One of us had a Prius, and I have a different Toyota vehicle. But we would rotate. And we would go to one station, we'd take that down to downtown, we'd work, then we would take the train back up to our station, and then maybe it's a 5-minute commute from the train station home. So that's half the gas that was required to be able to do that same kind of thing. And then the way the trains work is they have a specific schedule. You can use your cell phone, buy a ticket. You could do a monthly, and you just pop your cell phone over to it and you get on and all that. Now, I don't disagree with you about the New York thing. Yes, on a regular basis, I did see people sleeping on the train. I did see a lot of different things that happened. There were a couple of incidences that are probably not Twitch or YouTube appropriate, but we'll just say there's some stories about individuals who may or may not have had children on the train, if you know what I mean. So we'll just go to that point. But I did that for 3 years, and I will tell you this: my company actually paid the company that I still work for to this day. That's my parachute job. They gave me a for me not to drive and park downtown. They gave me a supplemental thing. They paid for my transit. That's how they covered it. And then for everybody at the company who did transit, they actually paid carbon credits and did different things. Like they did some special offsets and a bunch of other stuff. It was really cool. And I actually got because I did that, I actually got more money because it actually offset stuff. So if
you want to live in the box, that's totally fine. Like I think that different strokes for different folks, right? That was more like a personal judgment than like a public judgment. I actually have no problem building a small mall-like cube and then jamming as many leftists as we can into the cube and just let them all live together and smell each other's body odor.
I mean, I don't disagree with we tried to do that here too. Ty has also seen that. There is we have a planned community that's specifically designed. It has housing, it has like grocery, it has everything. It's all planned out in this whole community. There is no requirement for mass transit, and actually they have buses that come in and will pick people up and take them to other areas. And we have 3 of those communities. He's seen one of our what we call it upscales, but we have something called Austin
are you
Ranch.
in Texas?
Yes.
I think I saw this, and it was because it looked like a giant parking garage next to a giant mall area next to giant multifamily. I don't think I saw the multifamily housing, but is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so there's that. That's called Grandscapes. Then there's another place called Austin Ranch. Austin Ranch has a different design. They have both multifamily housing, they have single family housing, and they have all of it. And it's all incorporated in such a way where they have like a strip that runs down basically the center of Austin Ranch, and they have housing on either side of it. And everybody can either walk within distance to the grocery stores, to the drugstore, to bars, to everything. All the entertainment is all incorporated. We're talking there's even there's like an emergency ER place. There's 2 of those on either end. There's a bunch of stuff. And majority of the people that live there just do all of their stuff there, and then if they have to leave to go work, then they leave to go work. But with the change, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I just want to say, like, I want to do like 100-year meta-analysis. Obviously, I'll be dead by then. But like, I want to do 100-year meta-analysis on like where mass shootings occur, and I want to see like if they occur more frequently in planned communities versus unplanned communities. And my suspicion would be that the planned communities would actually be kind of like have a social I don't know, like immunity to, mass shootings, even though they're probably better targets. And the reason why is because people are involved and they're local and they can walk and they know their neighbors, or they can know their neighbors if they want to, and all that kind of shit. So I just wouldn't be surprised if all in all it's a better way to live.
I got some crime stats for you. I got
on planned communities?
well, just in general crime statistics. Crime rate for Houston, Texas, 56 per 1,000 residents. Crime statistics for Exemplia Barcelona is 15 per 1,000.
And I'm assuming that what you just said was more
yes,
more
it
planned,
is,
more
it
brought
is
up.
If you're in favor of strong towns and freaking urbanized housing with 6-story multifamily everywhere, like literally every building is this same cookie cutter sort of octagonal 6 to 8 story structure, and you freaking walk everywhere. There's trees on every street. That is 15 crimes per 1,000. I think that's per year. It's whatever Google gives me in terms of like just base crime stats.
Yeah, no, based, and that's obviously Spain has a lot different of a society than us, but in general, I just have a vibe checking that it's probably just better to live in a community that you feel like you have a decent chunk of access to, that's easily accessible. You don't have teenagers like I was playing Minecraft with my son earlier today, but you don't have like teenagers just locked up in their houses playing video games 16 hours a day. Instead, you actually have them walking down to the public areas to participate in the community.
I gotta ask, so like with these mass shootings, isn't it usually somebody coming from outside the community to do damage within that community?
Kind of, but they oftentimes like damage places that they know. So if they went to that school or whatever, they'll do that. But my whole point is more about like the alienation where you're just kind of like stuck at home mauling over how you got bullied at fucking high school instead of being able to walk to the video game place or the card store or the whatever, like the mall, to actually socialize with people. So of course it's not perfect, but
I have to say the best card store or whatever you want to call it, they have Magic the Gathering stuff. I don't know how to. Yes, it's like a comic book. Yeah, the best one is in Austin Ranch. It's freaking amazing. It's about the size, if you remember like the old so it's about the size of like a Dollar General, like full square footage. So at the front it's like all of like the comic books and all this other stuff plus all the counters and stuff. In the back, it is literally 3 separate rooms that they can combine into one big room where they can have major events, or they can subdivide it so different people can come and play like Warhammer, or you can play Magic the Gathering, or you can do Pokemon stuff or all that. This is what's really cool about this, and there's people in there all the time because it's a place for them to be. Yeah, because not only because you can walk, but because they're open to like 1 or 2 in the morning, and so people might even come there after they've been at a bar or something just to kind of hang out and chill, to do whatever. Like and tell
me the business isn't ecstatic too, because they have foot traffic all fucking day, all
day. They make even even during certain situations over the last couple of years, they still were able to survive because they were able to do the things that were needed within the community to help protect the community during those times, and still be able to do the stuff that they needed to do. Right. So those businesses were able to, continue function.
Before I introduce our latest arrival, I do want to say that if there's any place that I think we need to have a conversation about actually doing like redevelopment, or particularly like urban development in the way that we're wanting to do it, there are a few cities that absolutely should be on the target list to reincorporate and rework. Detroit just screams at me. You're talking about a city that used to be 2 million people within the downtown area. Like the metro area is like 5, and now it's depopulated to where the downtown's less than 1 million. It's like 800,000, and like the suburban area around it is now down to like 2 million. There's plenty of places that are technically within the infrastructure that just condemned, blown down, whatever, that you can start literally reworking these entire areas. You'll have people flood into them once it starts getting developed, and then wherever the hell they're leaving can be the next target.
Yeah, but
Baltimore, you could just hit it with a fucking JDAM munition and
right. But every time the development groups that have tried to go in there to do the renewals or whatever you want to call it, they've all gotten basically shut down because it's viewed as like a gentrification kind of thing, and that's not the intent. But yeah, that's what people are saying, and that's an issue, right?
But I think you could, but so this all comes down to like marketing and sales. So I think you could literally say like a third of homing or half of the houses or something like that are going to be going to local community members or whatever. We'll work on financing, et cetera, et cetera. 10% or 20% will be low income, et cetera, blah, blah, blah.
That's how the Democrats ruin our housing bill. The only way of solving gentrification, I started to be like a free market Andy, the only way of solving gentrification is to build everywhere all at once. Because no matter what you do, if you put in incentives to like redistribute the new housing to the existing people, either you're either like handing out in a way that really carves out enormous wealth for a few people, or you're just gonna have to bite the bullet and do like this massive land reform all at once.
Okay, I'm the worst conservative. You're the worst communist.
Yeah.
All right,
so wait,
guys.
so I got to ask this question: where does that put me? Because I'm like in the middle between the two of you right now.
No,
like, I agree with some of this stuff.
Your policy prescriptions, you better be like a huge homophobe or transphobe or something, because all of your policy prescriptions so far have been pretty lefty. Not gonna lie.
Well, okay.
You better hate.
Well, Ty can Fijian where I live in that realm.
All right, so 2 things. Number 1, ladies and gentlemen, I do want to welcome our good friend iCal Rich. We did invite him. Hopefully everything's okay. Maybe he's recovering from tornado damage. By the way, that is actually the reason Jacanadar is not with us, is that Apparently, wherever his grandkids are was one of the places that got hit pretty heavy by tornadoes, and he's been helping out with that particular issue. So we wish him well. But iCow, how are you?
Doing great. This is Tornado Alley, but we don't have any of that weather here right now. I just had a work thing pop up.
I got you. Well, it's great to see you, sir. We were talking about EVs, and we just transitioned into the conversation of designing our cities. Don't worry, you can totally bring it back around here in just a moment. But I think the two solutions that we've gotten to are, one, we do need to have a massive conversation on how we do transportation, how we do urban planning, because what is the problem with having a car if you have a place designed for it? I think that we've all kind of agreed with that. The one thing that I would just want to make sure we're all square on, do we all agree that we need to have a less carbon intensive grid before we go to EVs? Can we all agree on that, or is there anyone who wants to push for it?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. Yeah, I disagree with that.
Okay, I want you guys to fight about that here in a second.
Yeah,
that's fine. I want you guys to fight about that for the final section. Before we do, though, definitely, I'm very interested to see. I would definitely want to see a lot more of economic investment into older cities. I know gentrification's a big issue. Certain cities are failing is because they literally just piss off like success. I don't know why you would do that, but anyway, you guys can either explore that one, or if you will, for the last part here, tell me why it's okay to have EVs with a high-intensity carbon grid like we have now.
Because after 30 to 60,000 miles, that EV will have broken even when it comes to its per-mile emissions. Like, the dirtiest, we're talking like Kentucky, Ohio is nuclear, so not Ohio. So the dirtiest freaking grid in America or Poland, and that car will have broken even. And it gets better all the time. And that's with a giant battery car like a Tesla. If you have a smaller battery car, it's great. If it's an electric bike, it literally doesn't matter. You could burn like living animals at this point, and you're gonna break even pretty quickly.
Christ. And as I said, I can't disagree with him on that, because I do have that same philosophy for that. Right? Is that EVs are more environmentally friendly on the consumption route, whether they are more environmentally friendly on the production route, that's a completely different thing, right? So we have to have that idea of concept.
Yeah, that includes production.
So you're talking about including production. It literally offsets itself by a certain point.
Yeah,
right.
If you freaking buy
in the first
year
of its life, it does.
Yeah, if you buy a new car and you immediately wreck it, then yes, you have done more harm than a gasoline car. But that's basically the only scenario.
Right.
Yeah. There's another issue here too, and that is the chicken and the egg problem, right? Yeah, you can say, let's wait until we have a clean grid before we start like pumping out EVs. Or I've heard the argument on the other side. What's the point in making this, a clean grid if EVs are just going to like suck up all that extra power, and then will take away the benefit of that clean grid? You can always wait for one sector to be perfect before you allow another sector to develop, but that's not how like economics works. Certainly not how capitalism works. Everything just develops, and it develops in parallel. And so cars get cleaner, grids get cleaner sort of simultaneously, and at the end, when you get to the end state that you need. And so if you wait for one before you start developing the other, then you've just cut the speed of your progress in half.
Well, I also think that we need a hybrid approach to our grids as we continue to clean them up, right? So I also believe that in certain zones where products like solar panels and stuff like that are more efficient for those zones, like I live in Texas, and so it is more efficient for us in certain times of the year, especially when it's really hot outside, for us to have homes that have their own supplemental electric grid integrated, because then that that actually offsets the grid itself because there's not as much energy needed in the grid to supplement those
even better.
Well,
so has anybody seen the Polestar technology that's coming out right now?
I mean, I've read about it, but I haven't seen it like directly.
So these electric vehicles also have solar panels on them. So throughout the day, if you have sun where you are, it is going to be charging and it won't be feeding off of the grid as well.
See, I love that idea. Yeah, and I love that idea. I think that is something that we should look at more, especially because that will extend the life of the vehicle. Because then, one of the problems is you deal with lithium-ion style technologies is you have a certain amount of use versus consumption, right? So there's a certain point where the battery will start to degrade if it doesn't have a certain amount of charge on the battery. So if that battery is not being used, that battery decreases. There are a lot of hybrid cars that if they sit for extended periods of time, the battery will start to get to a depletion, right? But if you had something like this, where the battery's always got a charge happening, whether that charge is being plugged in or that charge is a solar integration to it, that actually extends the longevity of the battery in the vehicle.
Yeah,
which actually then helps.
A little bit of an L when it comes to these advanced solar EVs is that literally to get the efficiency to run off the sun, they have to be the most efficient micro car. Like I know you're talking about Polestar, Aptera is another one. That car, that Aptera car, is more kilowatt efficient per mile than my bicycle, than my electric moped. It is more per mile per hour is more efficient than my bicycle. And so
so how do we...
Glad you like it.
How do we make this manly? Like, do we just get a bald eagle and drench it in petroleum?
I'm just wondering why a car makes it manly.
Yeah, carbon fiber has to be sexy, and a giant F1 Lightning has to be cliche and sus.
Dude, right now I drive a Toyota Camry. That's not manly, but hey, you know what? I don't really care if somebody judges me because I don't look manly in my car. My car has 4 wheels. It gets from point A to point B, and it does 35 miles to the gallon.
You're the worst,
and it has a little turbo.
Soy boy, join me! Come on, let's go, soy boys.
My favorite application for the solar stuff isn't even putting it on a super efficient car. You put it on a regular Chevy Bolt or whatever, and you can make it so that what it does is it responds to the ambient temperature in the air around you. You'll get on hot summer days when you get your most solar generation, all it does is if you turn it on to do this, it just turns on the air conditioning inside the car just enough so that when you get inside the car, it's not swelteringly hot where it rips the skin off of your legs if you're wearing shorts on the leather seats. What it does is, right when solar power is most available, most efficiently, it uses just a little bit of air conditioning just to keep the car manageable. And I really like that that application of it. And that sort of solves the fact that, you're not going to get a whole lot of power off of a rooftop solar panel for your car. But it's just enough to be useful for some of those small applications. It'll power the cameras, that are monitoring anti-theft stuff, all that kind of stuff.
But it also protects the battery. So that's the other aspect to that, right? That's what people don't think about, right? Is that there is a degradation over time if there's current continually going on the batteries. But if you have an offset current on those batteries that keep them at least 80% charged, those batteries have a longer lifespan. Doesn't matter if it's in a laptop, doesn't matter if it's an electric car, it doesn't matter. There's a certain point because those batteries have a certain half-life in limitation. Then you have to replace them. So what happens in this case is that if you have two cars, two EVs, one has a system that's in place that has the ability to keep the car efficiently cooled when it needs to be efficiently cooled, keeps the battery charged at a certain percentage, keeps the battery safe. And then you have another car that doesn't have any of those features. So car 1 might have 10 to 15 years life, which means you can put a ton of mileage on that vehicle, which means that vehicle then offsets its cost. No matter whether that cost is its manufacturing or that cost is its overall usage and viability. Whereas the other car might only get a 5-year. Well, now you have to then take into the factors if you're looking at how much is that cost, how much did it cost us to manufacture that vehicle in, environmental damage or whatever you want to look at it. You have to take these into factors. So is it better to have a technology that's not really there to really offset the grid cost, but it's there to keep the vehicle on the road longer, versus a product that's just there? It was cheap. It only cost, $35,000, but it's only going to be on the road. It's going to be on the road for 5 years. Is that going to be the same cost? We have to think about that from a financial stake, not only from an.
It's going to be consumer. Yeah. That's all going to be consumer ended. That's what I was thinking. I was like, where's the downside? And then you kind of got to it. And that's the thing is, like, I'm all for higher technology being more efficient and cool and doing cool stuff, et cetera, et cetera. But the truth is that I have to operate within a price point. And if a 30 mile per gallon vehicle is in general going to be less expensive than a $50,000 EV, then unless I become a YouTube millionaire, a $50,000 EV is off the table.
So the enemy is capitalism.
Kill me.
Well, I'm not going to say much. My car's paid for, so whatever.
Consumption.
No, whenever I see.
But I gotta ask Connor: is the true test of manliness not being able to feel and look manly walking out of a Mini Cooper?
Maybe, but at the same time, like, I think it's not a question of like what is actual masculinity, right? That's not the real question. Yeah, the real question should be like, you can buy a pink Volkswagen Beetle and still feel hardcore stepping out of it, right? Like, that would be real masculinity. But the truth is that people use vehicles and weapons and money and accessories and all that kind of stuff as status symbols. So if you remove like part of the status symbol is doing something bad, especially amongst like conservatives, carbon consumers, meat eaters, all that kind of stuff. Part of it is doing something bad that you shouldn't do, but it feels good anyways. So if that's driving a fucking diesel truck or
On order, baby.
Eating an endangered animal or something, it's that kind of shit that, like, some people get off on. So you have to sell it to those people, because it can't be, hey guys, think of the whales. Like, people with status are going to say, fuck the whales. I want my shit to run on whale blubber.
Isn't that what Teslas are for, right? Like, Elon, I think, took a hit for the team, right, by going to the dark side, so that people on the right would think that Teslas are cool now, because,
because it's
Elon. Elon owns it. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta support Elon.
But see, that's the thing is, even Teslas, though, because they were, expensive at first, they're still a status symbol. If you can afford a Tesla, if you can afford a 50 to 70 EV, that's not for the poors.
And wait for the Model 2s to come out, because they're going to be sub 25,000.
If they are, then I will seriously consider it. And I have a nuclear power plant.
That's before the $7,500 subsidy that
Fed rebate, nice.
Yeah.
And I have a nuke power plant that is probably not going to be decommissioned for another 10 years in my area. So I don't have to worry about coal or any of that bullshit.
Based.
All right, before we wrap it up, I haven't heard a lot from Changebox. Do you have any further notes that you want to add to this particular conversation, my friend?
You're all nutty with hopium on technology. We're all going to work this out simply by waving our magic wand and making everything super efficient, even though that's never happened in the past. We're going through a once in a species time where we have free energy for all intents and purposes, and we are throwing it away.
Spicy. Does anyone need some closing comments on this particular subject, or are you guys ready to go to the next one?
Ready.
I want to talk about mass transit versus cars, just like...
I feel you. I think we're going to have to do that on another episode.
I just want to say quickly, because you guys were talking about infrastructure just generally. Here in Texas, we had something happen that over in our history that's happened in many big cities, and that is a big highway cutting through an African-American neighborhood, thus destroying that neighborhood. And as a result, a lot of consequences happened. But there have been new movements, like here in Dallas, where we built a deck park that goes over a highway that did that.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like healing those neighborhoods and bringing them back together. Now, it's too late to save those original residents because it's now sort of a very wealthy sort of downtown area. It's not the neighborhood that it was. But it is sort of, I think, an indication that going forward, we can put a lot of these highways underground and sort of like reclaim some real estate that will allow us to live in more sustainable ways.
Now you're talking about.
Okay, go ahead.
You're talking about Clyde Warren, right?
Clyde Warren was the first. There's now 3 more being opened up here.
Oh, okay.
I also want to give like my prescription for what any city can implement as fast as possible in order to massively reduce the miles driven in their city, and that is a firm barrier toll road / bus lane BRT infrastructure. And I'm not talking measly little $5, $10 tolls. I'm talking this is a ultra luxury toll lane, $50, $100 or city operated buses only toll lane. This is, if you carry more than 4 people in your vehicle and you're going down that, you are paying $500 a day if you're a private carrier. So this is a like bypass all of that traffic. Only the big spenders and mass transit get to use it.
What a savage.
All right. I think that it's time to move on to the next topic. So, without further ado, just let me pull it back up here. It's going to be Trump, guys, but we're going to get into the indictment. Mm-hmm. And the long and the short here is that Trump has been indicted by a grand jury in the state of New York. Is this another lopsided attempt to undermine him, or is this the end of Teflon Don? Now, I want to disclose this. None of these folks are legal experts. This is going to be one of those deals where we're just kind of shooting the shit on this particular topic, but I want you guys' like general like gut punch reaction here. Is this finally the time where Donnie is going to get hit with something and actually it's going to stick, or is this another thing where the Democrats are going to go, hey, we couldn't get over the finish line. So, sister,
there aren't any lawyers left to work for Trump, so he may have to settle for us 6 here.
All right, sister, go ahead.
Hey, man, I got to ask this question. This is going to be the dumbest thing ever. Why should we care?
What?
I to be honest with you, I personally don't care.
Wait, if he gets hit with an indictment? Or if he gets hit with a conviction?
I don't care. Like, how does this affect everyday Americans? Like, what is this impact really going to do for everyday Americans? Right? Like, I get there are concepts. No, I'm not. I don't do drugs. So I might drink some beers, but I don't do drugs. Okay, so we go back to this. As an American, like, what point is this? Is it any different than Tricky Dick? I mean, is it any different kind of...
There's only 2 major Republican people who can run, and on top of that, I've been waiting to see DeSantis start spiking the ball, and so far he's fumbled a couple of times, which is actually really anxiety-inducing. I think somebody asked him,
"What? I gotta get this real quick. Are we just wanting to just go full up into the open, or do we want to get everyone's like kind of 2 cents in this?"
I'm just going to be listening.
I got a pretty important take, actually.
All right, let me do a roundhouse real quick, just so everyone can get their 2 cents in, and then if people want to hang back in the background, go for it. So, Systrom, give your 2 cents here. We'll go around the table real quick and lay it all out.
I gave my 2 cents already. No.
Okay, fair enough. Soyaddle, what do you think?
It's stupid to talk about this. It's under seal. We don't know. We can guess. And so I'm going to meme about that. If I was a lawyer, I would refuse to comment on this because I don't know what's in the indictment. There you go. F5 on your favorite news site, like the 5 minutes after he gets indicted, like watch it live if they allow cameras. This is going to be like the media frenzy of the year around this. It's going to be bigger than Supreme Court rulings. There's going to be like legal aides and interns breaking their necks on the steps to report on this unless they allow cameras. That'll be fun. And like people who live around Southern District, New York, Chinatown, New York City, it's going to be crazy. If it's January 6th again, I'm going to laugh all the way to the bank and short Republican stock because you're going down in flames if any weird shit happens around this indictment. That's what I got.
All right, that's this is going to be a very interesting one. Next is Rich.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too different on that. I do think that unsealing the indictment would be important before we comment on too much of the specifics, especially this claim I keep hearing around that this is a made up or unprecedented charge that's happening because of the way that they would be going from a misdemeanor to a felony. That claim has been based on the idea that the accelerating charge that takes it to a felony is a particular campaign finance violation. But there are other crimes that this could be covering up for that would also escalate it to a felony that are not unprecedented, that get used all the time. So which one of those it is, we won't know until they unseal the indictment. So, either this is unprecedented or it's something that's happened many times before in New York, because New York does a lot of this kind of stuff. I'd have to wait. All I can say is follow the law. Like, it's not easy to get 12 jurors to unanimously convict on something. So if they can get that unanimous agreement on guilt, I would have to say we should give that a lot of credibility. Just like if they're unanimous on innocence, we would have to give that credibility as well. And, maybe we could argue back and forth if it's a hung jury. But other than that, that's all.
We're not talking about. Never mind.
Hold a minute, you're not there yet. But I'm thoroughly enjoying these answers so far. So this is great. Leith, go ahead, sir.
So we're at a point with this particular individual where, even though we don't know what it is, it could be virtually anything. He's done so many things. Just throw it at the wall. It could be virtually anything. So for them to actually feel they have a strong enough case to indict a past president, I want to think their case is strong. So whatever they're doing, I'm hoping they're doing it in good faith. I'm pretty sure they are. This is definitely not a witch hunt because they wouldn't waste the capital on it. And seeing the chaos that was caused just by him saying, I'm being arrested on Tuesday, how much money the city of New York spent out of fear of what these person's backers are going to do.
And then 12 people
exceptional.
showed up.
And then 12 people. He wasted so much money for that city as if he hadn't already wasted money for that city. So I'm really happy that we're finally going to get our orange mugshot. I'm going to hang it on my wall, going to frame it, the whole deal, and enjoy the crap out of it. Because he's finally getting a taste of what he deserves. And he's being arraigned in the same courthouse that the Central Park Five were arraigned in. Eat that shit. Rest in piss.
Okay, fair enough.
Are we all team normal? Oh my god. Come on.
Well, that's where I was gonna take this to some degree. Is like, hey, Connor, welcome to the crowd where you actually don't have people like memeing and dreaming like a DDG.
No, it's almost more exhausting. So hold on, is it my turn?
Sir.
Okay, yeah. So number one, I'm pretty sure we know what it's for. Like, I get that you guys are saying like you want to see the paperwork or whatever, but I'm pretty sure it's for the Stormy Daniels payment. That's all I've heard over and over and over again is the fact that what Michael Cohen or whoever the fucking lawyer was paid $130,000 to Stormy Daniels in order to secure stuff, and then Trump paid her back or paid the lawyer back with like uncorrelated or corroborated legal expenses, and then they were somehow able to track the dollar amount paid to Stormy Daniels to exact, because Trump is such a cheapskate. he paid Michael Cohen in like over the course of like 4 payments exactly what he paid Stormy Daniels. So I think we already know what it is, number one. Number two, like, is this a big deal? Not really. I don't care that Donald Trump paid off his mistress. It seems like something that he did. But then I just feel like he's done like way worse shit. So then the question becomes, if he's indicted, is that a big enough of a black eye that it'll affect the general? Two, is Ron DeSantis ready to seize the mantle? Because if Trump goes, then it would be his game to lose. And then, yeah, it is a big fucking deal. Who's going to run for the Republican primary against Joe Biden is huge.
Yeah, I'm going to go into speculation now. There's 34 charges in the indictment. It's
Jesus.
I can't see how it's only the Cohen Daniels money election laundering.
There's gonna be some tax evasion shit or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And Trump organization was found guilty already, so maybe it relates to that too.
I love you guys. Change boxes last. Go ahead, sir.
A ton of theater going on. This is red meat for both the left and the right. Almost doesn't matter what happens. They can both claim victory or defeat for the other side or whatever the hell it is they want to do. I guarantee you that Trump will run even if he's in jail. Not going to make any difference. And frankly, victimhood is a position of power now. And he's going to be seen as a huge victim by those people who already thought he was a victim. He's clearly not, but he plays that card extremely well.
Ooh, is it going to... Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're fine. Anyway, this is the point where we get to the open, but before I do, I just want to say that we still have a former governor and former UN, former UN ambassador that is now running and openly declared, but a woman Republican? No, we can't do that. We can't vote for that. Nah. Go ahead, guys.
Nikki Haley?
Yes.
So well, I would vote for Nikki Haley as long as she does well in the debates. But as a matter of fact, that might be my preferred candidate, to be honest. But that's the thing is, like, I think that a lot of Trump people, I'm not saying that anybody here is a Trump person, and it's perfectly fine to be a Trump person. But I think a lot of Trump people are like, oh, well, if he gets arrested, he'll spin it to his advantage, which I think he can. But I also think it's kind of hard to do if his prison stay or jail stay is anything besides like house arrest. Like if he's on house arrest or whatever, he can wear his suits, he can get in front of a podium, he can do normal speeches, like all that kind of shit. Whereas if he's, in like an orange jumpsuit, like walking up to do his speeches by jail telephone call, I think that will affect the way that people perceive it. And of course, I think his diehard followers will treat him like a martyr, but I think a lot of other normie Republicans will be like, okay, well, this guy fucked up enough in order to end in jail. Fuck him. I'm going to go with the more normie candidate. So, yeah.
I mean, politicians running a country after they went to jail, it worked in Germany. Maybe it'll work in America too.
Except it wouldn't be after he goes to jail. People aren't
I got the reference.
People aren't noticing the timing of this. The first primary is in 11 months. I doubt the average case like this goes to trial in 1.5 years. And it's going to take longer than 1.5 years because it's the former president of the United States. Everything that can be appealed will be appealed. There'll be attempts at change of venue. There'll be tons of motions to dismiss, all that stuff.
Are you suggesting they're trying to line this up with the election?
No, I'm suggesting this will be after the election.
Okay.
That it won't even be like the election will have come and gone before the trial even happens. And most of the delay techniques will be coming from the defense because it will be constant motions coming from the Trump's defense team. And the federal, if anybody's thinking federal charges will be even faster, that takes even longer. It could be 3 years before federal charges actually wind up at trial. Like he might get indicted this year federally, but he wouldn't go to trial before the election. I don't think this goes to trial.
About it nonstop.
Yeah, and they will be talking about it constantly. Yeah, unless he drops out of the race or loses the primary. But again, the primary season starts in 11 months. So I don't know that he would be running from jail. We might be facing the opposite situation where he becomes president and then is convicted.
That would be and
I don't know what happens then because DOJ guidance says that you do not investigate or prosecute a sitting president, and it's to avoid that very problem. But if he's already under indictment when elected, then that rule can't apply anymore. And also, It's not the DOJ; it's New York. The feds can't tell New York what to do. So I don't know what happens, but it would be insane. It would just
Wouldn't that be kind of hilarious if the feds didn't indict, but New York did, and then like Don was like, all right, well, I guess I'm just not going to New York, and then like they tried him in absentia, and then like he was just like, all right, well, I guess I'm just not going to New York for the next couple of years while I'm sitting as
DeSantis has
president.
made that offer already. DeSantis has said he will not extradite.
Yeah, he did say that.
So I don't know how
2.0. Let's go.
Yay.
So let's say he does win the presidency, right? And he's in Florida, and to avoid extradition from other states, he just Mar-a-Lago becomes the White House.
They've already got to win the White House.
Extradition doesn't work that way.
All
the governor can do is he will not be the one arresting, like his people will not be the one arresting or extraditing. It requires U.S. Marshals to come in and do it.
But this is a state indictment, not a U.S.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That means that the state of New York would have to then go to the DOJ. The DOJ would then have to go through a process. Then they would have to send U.S. Marshals to go get Trump. That's how that.
But hold on. There's one part of this scenario that we're not considering because they go to the DOJ, but Trump is president. Because remember, under my scenario, he becomes president before he gets his trial. He loses his trial. He's in Florida. They go to the DOJ. The Attorney General Josh Hawley says, "No, we're not sending U.S. Marshals."
Exactly. Right. So there's a whole thing, but that's how state-to-state jurisdiction works when it comes to like a person being in one state to another state, and the state decides. Because there was an incident with a governor, I believe it was like in the 70s, that there was an ex-governor of a state that was in that state, and somehow he did something in another state and was brought up on charges from that other state, and the state that he was in did not want to allow the other state to deal with it. They had to go to the federal government. The federal government, the Department of Justice, then had to do some kind of filing. Then they had to do the intermediary between the two states, and the U.S. Marshals had to be involved. Not the FBI, not the other. It has to be the US Marshals.
You already know it's going to be kibosh, though. You already know it's going to be kibosh before that happens.
As I said, that's what I'm trying to tell you. It's like this is why I don't really like this whole time scale thing that's already been said. This is why I'm just like, why should I care about this indictment right now? The only time I'm going to really
because of the political impacts of the general election, even if he gets indicted, or like even just if he gets indicted and it gets dismissed, or it's a bureaucratic kerfuffle.
So here's the question:
affect the general.
Well, then this is the question I'm going to ask you: does it change your mindset on who you would vote for as an option? Because you basically said there's a candidate that you would be like, okay, if the playing field is cleared a little bit more, you would vote for this candidate if this person achieves.
But see, I don't think that the playing field is going to be more clear. I think that's what's going to happen is Trump is just going to have a black eye. So I think even if he got indicted, let's say it's like misdemeanor, somebody said like 34 indictments, like I'll be, or 34 charges. Like I would be very interested to find out what the charges
34
are.
counts, yeah.
30
counts of document fraud, and we don't know what the other 4 are.
Okay, well then, boom, there you go.
But we think the other 4 are escalatory charges that turn the document fraud into felonies.
Okay, so we won't know, but at the same time, I'm assuming it's all going to be related to this one event, and I think that people knew that Donald Trump was a philanderer. I think they knew that he cheated on his wife. I think that they knew that he lied about it. I don't think they care. So then the question
they voted for him after his incident with the stick it into something area.
Grab him by the P word.
Yeah.
Well, right. So that's kind of my point is I don't think like people who are huge fans of Donald Trump are going to change. I think it's going to change like a lot of people, including my parents. They plugged their nose in order to vote for Trump last time. The question is if he's indicted for paying his mistress off while he was cheating on his pregnant wife, will they be able to plug their nose again? And I don't know the answer to that question.
I mean, I had to do the same thing. Like I had to wear blinders going in there because I didn't want to vote for Uncle Biden. So it's just the way the way it is. I had it. I'm not a conservative. Like, why does everybody think I'm a conservative?
Oh, I thought that's how I introduced you. My bad.
No, I am not a conservative, but I'm not a.
I just want to put out for the record. You said you were a conservative Texas Republican, or sorry, conservative Texan. That's what you said. Excuse me.
I said a conservative Texan. I did not say I'm a conservative.
Okay. Well, you'll have to explain the difference for the audience.
Yeah.
I'm about to bring you up on 34 counts of charge and felony.
Okay, you know what all this reminds me of? It reminds me of when the Lewinsky thing happened, and Democrats would say, "Oh, I can't believe he's being impeached over a blowjob," and the conservatives would continually say, "It's not about the blowjob; it's about the perjury." Right? And here, it's the same thing. It's not about having sex with a porn star. It's about the document fraud and the campaign finance violations and covering up for other crimes with document fraud that he's being being charged with. And this is the same sort of thing. This same charging decision happened with what was his name? It was a Democrat about 20 years ago. Somebody here remembers his name. He got caught, I think, doing the same thing. He paid off somebody that he had sex with. He was a candidate.
Was that like John Edwards or something?
Yeah, John Edwards.
That's it.
This is the exact same thing that John Edwards was being charged with. The only difference is he wasn't using campaign funds like Trump was. So with Trump, the hazard's a little bit higher. But the fact is, Republicans weren't saying that they didn't care about John Edwards's
extramarital
paying
affair.
off, right? Or the fact that he paid somebody off to hide the affair, which was the key part. And the fact that Clinton was willing to lie about the blowjob or whatever. He characterized it as not being sex. And so,
don't you remember when public officials had a sense of shame?
Yeah. That depends on what the definition of is, right? Was what he said.
Well, I mean, actually, so maybe they never had shame.
Depends on the definition of sex.
I mean,
yeah.
If we want to go down that lane, I mean, Uncle Joe had an incident the first time he ran for president, like back in the 80s or something like that, and he had to stop.
It was plagiarism.
Yeah. So
I mean, he got caught.
Plagiarism. That's cute at this point.
Yeah, that's what
exactly.
I'm saying. I just go to this point. The politicians are just dirty players as it is no matter what. They're all doing something dirty. It's just where do you draw the line?
Biden at least had the shame to drop out of the presidential race, and he didn't come back in for 30 years. So he's come back out of the wilderness, one could say, I suppose. But you're not going to see that kind of shame from Trump because he has no shame.
And
it's the same thing for Edwards, right? Edwards dropped out of the race right away as soon as that happened. Like these people, there are all of these people who have gotten caught for doing less than what Trump's doing. All of them, these examples that people keep giving to compare to this, are all people who dropped out of the race, and then you compare it to here, where you have way more on him. This is the least serious of his charges, by the way. What he's got going on in Georgia is way more serious. He's got two different lines of inquiry with Jack Smith that are both way more serious. This is the least serious thing, and it's already more serious than those
he needed 11,392 votes, and they were already out there. That's all he said. He wasn't soliciting anything.
Numbers
he
aren't
wasn't
illegal
trying to change anything.
He was
Come
just
on.
saying numbers.
He was just saying numbers.
First politician to ever lie.
Listen. No, okay, but that shit is wild to me because, like, I would be less annoyed if people weren't coping. If they were like, yeah, he might have been asking for a little bit of something, but you can't really prove that. If people were saying that shit, I'd be like, all right, like at least he's asking for a little something. But people will defend that to the hilt, where they're like, no, he was just really concerned about fraud, and he just really wanted those 12,000 votes. And I was like, all right.
I mean, how many counts of fraud has he or his organization been found guilty of already, like convicted of, like felonies, like or been charged civilly with? Okay, starting with the Trump University fraud in 2016, that was $25 million.
Okay, but
recently,
I am
17 felonies.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Recently 17 million, and that's not even the big charge, because the civil suit is next, and that's going to be about $20 million, $200 million.
Okay, I am mildly sympathetic to the Republicans who say oh, well, this, that, the other, Obama did this, Hillary Clinton did this, they never got prosecuted and all that kind of stuff. But they're not it's not even a rebuttal. It's just kind of like a reflexive thought. I want fucking Hillary Clinton to get, I want Hillary Clinton to get punished for her bullshit too. But guess what? She fucking didn't. And on a scale of comparison of fucked up shit, Trump has more fucked up shit. So sorry about it. Like, fuck it.
My favorite one was al-Awlaki, right? I keep hearing a lot of people saying, that
Obama killed Anwar al-Awlaki.
Obama droned a 16-year-old kid. And then, but what they forget is that Trump droned his 8-year-old sister.
Damn.
Wow. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. They bring up the first one and not the second one.
Well, and if I remember correctly, with al-Awlaki or whatever too, the deal there was he was like out trying to find his father or whatever, who was a fucking terrorist propagandist and all that kind of stuff. And I'm pretty sure the target technically wasn't his son; it was
it wasn't
one of the men he was hanging. One of the men he was hanging out with
there at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, so at the same time, like, we accidentally kill civilians all the time, but you care because he had a U.S. citizenship, despite the fact that he was the son of a terrorist looking for the terrorist, and he was hanging out with terrorists while he was doing it. Like, I mean, like, obviously it's fucked up. I'm not saying it's not fucked up. I'm just saying, like, the pearl clutching feels weird. That's all.
Yeah, and I criticized Obama at the time. I'm glad now that we have those badass drones with the blades on them, so that you can like target somebody individually and not kill the people around.
God. Yeah.
But at the time we didn't have those options. And when you think about the number of lives that you could save taking out, a terrorist leader versus whoever.
Yeah. Can I explain that real quick? Because I'm not sure. This is like borderline like old lore for probably people in my chat.
Straight out of Dune. This is the Hunter Seeker.
Yeah, so literally, I think they admitted to doing this with like Hellfires, but I think they even have like a specific payload that they haven't described yet. But basically, they've redesigned missiles to fire instead of having like an explosive charge that then like sends shrapnel out in every direction or is designed to take out a tank or whatever, and that's what we were using to take out people in the past. They now changed the payload to be kinetic and for it to be bladed. So now people are being hit with like fucking supersonic metal
serrated arrows
at the speed of a missile, and the chance for collateral damage, while still possible, is significantly less than an explosive payload.
Yeah, and the first attack that I remember that was publicly released, there was literally like two guys standing like in a window or like on a balcony, and it took out the target, and the person standing right next to him was like not hurt at all.
5.7 feet is their effective target.
Lethal radius.
Let me clarify two things here. These weapons that people are like alluding to, there's two different versions of them. One is just a purely kinetic weapon to where they're basically loaded full of tungsten steel needles, and what they do is they just shoot off a missile instead of the missile just running out something. Yeah, running out something and exploding. Is that they just head towards them, and then the missile deploys a parachute along with the basically a loaded mechanism. Right? Sometimes it's a charge, and they just fling this tungsten confetti at a particular target. More often, the latter is what happens to where we get a explosive charge, where instead of having the shrapnel go fucking everywhere, which is like normal anti-aircraft stuff, is that now you make a cone and you shoot everything in a particular direction. That's why those Russian like anti-air missiles that we were so scared of for a while have been more successful than the Patriot. They don't go up in the air and just explode everything around them. They purposely shoot everything in a cone direction at the target, and it's way more effective if you want to hit something, but accuracy is a little harder for you.
What a beautiful nightmare. Man-made horrors beyond my comprehension. I fucking love it. I can't wait for the gun dogs. But yeah, this is why American civilians need to have access to anti-material rifles like 20 millimeter and 50 BMG. So when the government starts putting guns on little robot dogs, we can kill the robot dogs. Although they might be really fast.
The little Boston the little Boston Dynamics robot dog that you're afraid of them putting guns on can get knocked over by a heavy duffel bag. I don't think you need. I don't think you need the 50 caliber round. I think you're fine with the buckshot.
Well, I want it anyways.
I've got it up for you on screen now, Connor.
What, the weapon?
The Hunter Seeker.
Oh yeah, from Dune. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I saw the newer one. So. Pretty recently. Oh, somebody types in. You mean cyber mastiffs? Yeah, kind of. Except for the ones in 40K will actually like rip your legs off, whereas these ones just have the potential to have guns on them.
Very big guns.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's a good times. Good time.
One that has successfully fired off the back of one of those Boston Dynamic dogs is a Barrett 50 cal.
Nice.
Yeah, and you remember how bad AI art was in 2017? Like, this technology is going to be massively developed in the next few years.
Can I point out something really funny but really stupid? So Marines who were with some like expert training unit or wherever, they had like gun dogs and they had like little motorized tracks and all that kind of stuff. But they went up against an AI that was supposed to be like a defensive AI that would track like inbound enemies and like shoot them and stuff.
Yes!
And so the Marines just get into cardboard boxes and the machine can't register them. So it's just like tracking a cardboard box, but it's a Marine in full kit, just like waddling up to the defensive turrets.
Wow.
So yeah, Metal Gear Solid wasn't completely
incorrect. Tree
incorrect.
branches and literally walked around as a tree.
Just like just waddled around. It's great. That's great.
Actually, even a mask that hides your eyes is enough to make it go wonky, because what it's doing is tracking the biometric print around your eyes.
Nice.
Whenever we get to the open panel, I want to talk about like AI and particularly like AI deepfakes. That shit scares me. Particularly, I want to get into that with Systrom, because I know he knows at least a little bit about it. But remind you, the topic is the Trump indictment. If we have to go out completely off the rails, so be it. But what's the election fallout here? Even if he's charged, let's assume somehow this gets fact-checked. I don't think it will, but let's assume that it does. What's the likelihood that Trump is actually in jail? Anyone want to go in on that?
1%. No, 1%. Even if he gets convicted, it'll more than likely be house arrest, because Secret Service can't follow you into prison
yet.
Well, that's a different question. Whether he's in prison and whether he gets convicted are two different questions.
Yeah,
right.
That's what
I agree. There's 0% chance he goes into a prison for that very reason. Like Secret Service can't follow him into prison. I just can't imagine that scenario.
I can't imagine they'd put him in solitary protective custody for however long he's in either.
Yeah, but can you think of the meme potential where, like, President Trump is literally hanging out in the fucking prison fucking rec yard, and like normally it's like a gang, right? So it's like an area. Yeah, but it's like all Secret Service agents in suits.
With guns, like people with guns inside of a prison. What could go wrong?
Right. Yeah. All right. So
I think we need to do like a like a Napoleon Bonaparte move and exile him to like one of these tiny islands off the coast of Alaska.
How about Puerto Rico?
No, I have the perfect place. It's called
Make sure it's St. Helena, not that first island he was.
No Name Key, and you're thinking of Elba.
The Isle of Elba.
Yeah, No Name Key in South Florida is about the size of the Mar-a-Lago property. It is got fresh water. It has usable port so that they can bring food in, and it has a bypass bridge. So you technically could literally freaking break the bridges to it and just avoid it altogether. And yeah, we could actually exile him to No Name Key and just rename it Trump Key.
Yeah. Put him in an island off of like Juneau, Alaska. He'll be closer to home, Russia that way.
Gitmo.
Hey, I was thinking keep him in Florida. At least then DeSantis's offer to hold him in exile holds true, and we still get rid of him.
Biden is on track to empty Gitmo, so it might be available.
Well, okay, so I wanted to talk about the DeSantis angle, because basically he was talking shit about like Biden's foreign policy and like Ukraine and shit. And somebody, I think the journalist just asked like, all right, well, what would you do different? And he got like stumped. And it's like, bro, like you're supposed to be running in like the next year. Like I'm pretty sure you need to be ready for that kind of shit. Like what the fuck?
I don't think he's running.
Like,
I'm just going to come in with it now. I don't think he's running. Like, seriously, like everything he is doing right now indicates to me that he's not going to now. I don't know why, but apparently there was a lot of overtures to him originally, but somewhere along the line, he's either gotten cold feet or somebody is behind the scenes pulling strings being like, no, he's not running, somebody else is, or they just want to lose the next election to Biden. I don't know why.
There are a lot of indications that say that the Wall Street types who were willing to fund him before think that he's like got too dictatorial in terms of like the policies that.
What, the trans shit? You're telling me there's no rich transphobes? Come on.
No, it has to do with the Disney thing. He went after wealthy people. The one thing you don't do.
He went after corporations. Yeah, for one. And also,
that's like the one thing I like. What are we talking about here?
I'm not saying I disagree that I like that he did it, but I'm saying
but
that's
Wall
what
Street
cost
doesn't
him.
like it.
It was literally the day he signed that his actual rhetoric changed, and that's when I started to agree with Ty. He's not running.
He was telling other corporations what to do in a variety of contexts. Like, for instance, he killed a major sports venue that was coming in because the mayor of that city wanted to do something with vaccines, and so he punished them by taking away their stadium. He went after the cruise lines that wanted to. And still did, because they didn't accede to his demands, that wanted to give COVID tests to everybody before they got on the cruise ships because they didn't want to have a fucking outbreak on their own ships. And he tried to say, well, you can't port in Florida ports. You can't dock in Florida ports if you have that requirement. And so they were like, well, then fuck it, we're not going to Florida. And even though a lot of them are based in Florida, it was a big financial issue. And it was just there are many other stories like this too. It's just instance after instance after instance of him fighting with corporations over policies that he didn't personally like. And so, Wall Street was not a big fan of that.
Yeah.
So, and here's another thing too is in order for him to run, he has to get past this law that says that you cannot run for president until you first step down as governor. And so he's introducing a bill to take that to repeal that bill so that he can run and still remain governor. But now Laura Loomer is opposed to that bill, and a bunch of other Trump supporters are opposed to that bill. So now you're having a fight among Republicans as to whether or not to pass that bill that repeals that law. And of course, Democrats are going to oppose it too.
Did Laura Loomer win?
No, but Laura Loomer has a big conservative audience in Florida that you can talk to, who are all lobbying there. Yeah. Really.
That is sad.
Yeah, go look at how many Twitter followers
that lady sucks.
Yes, I know, but she's also a Trump supporter. And if Trump decides to get on board with this movement to stop that bill from passing, then he screws DeSantis pretty hard. And I can't imagine that Trump won't do that because, he's Trump.
Well, and for the scale here for everybody who has never worked in a shipyard, that's $190,000 a ship he is foregoing for every ship that doesn't.
Well, did he back down?
Nope. They started going up to Hilton Head in South Carolina instead.
Wow.
Yeah, he's been screwing his own state constantly with bad
and stupid. And just the port of Miami. That's 13 ships a day.
Well, I'm down in Florida. I didn't hear a fucking peep about this shit.
Jobs.
I get. Yeah, I guess.
Well, no, the jobs are still there. They're just less money coming in because the cruise ships pay premium because they get first dibs on produce and labor because they need the quickest turnaround rather than cargo ships. So they pay for that premium, and him pushing them out of this particular market, just the port of Miami, that's 13 ships a day at $190,000 a ship.
Yeah, that's bananas.
And that cruise season is 6 months long in Florida.
Well, and I mean that's what I find fucking bananas is we're all about that tourist shit. So I mean, but pissing on Disney's leg. I think a lot of people, especially I'm in Central Florida. I think a lot of people
anyway.
I think a lot of people in Central Florida, at least me, Disney does throw their weight around a lot, and obviously they have a lot of progressive sympathies. So watching somebody actually kind of stand up to them and tell them to fuck off, and kind of go and put in politics over money, I guess, was kind of cool. But then I'm also just thinking about this. That the one that you just talked about with the cruise lines, that didn't seem like a fight worth having, and that's pretty dumb.
I don't think any of them were fights worth having.
But it was a fight he had to have because he would have lost a lot of the backing of his Uber elites in Tallahassee if he hadn't, because they were pushing against any vaccine mandate of any kind and any testing mandate of any kind. So if he had backed down on it, he would have lost their support. He would have essentially went through the Trump moment on vaccine and been booed.
I hate democracy.
Well, I hate this form of it. Yes, I agree. But
wait. Democracy.
No, just this form. This corrupted
No. Democracy is just another type of. It's another form of communism.
Come on.
Come on! I had to meme that one because technically,
I would agree with that.
Technically, we are a federalist republic. Democracy is technically what we use for our governance now. But that's a whole other can of worms. No, I had to meme that. I'm sorry.
While we're on that topic, just real quickly, the largest political party in the United States during the days of the Founding Fathers was the Democratic Republicans. Like, they definitely believed that the republic we were founding was a democratic one.
Sure. Well, and by the way, like I'm all good with all this kind of shit. What I'm really saying is I don't like it when politicians are accountable to dickheads. That's all. And of course, the definition of dickhead is going to vary from person to person, but still,
DeSantis is the.
Well, no, I think we can
just look it up and
fill that out real good. But I think we can filter that out real good. Take money out of politics, and this problem goes away because that is the whole reason that he is beholden to them in the first place.
Well, my frustration with this being I get it, COVID restrictions bad, blah 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 blah, but $200K, I'm thinking of tourism, $200,000 per ship. I'm thinking about all the people who are working there. I'm thinking about what that means for the local economy. What I'm thinking for Florida in general as a part of our hospitable reputation. That's a pretty big hit. Telling Disney to stuff it a little bit, that's not as big of a hit because Disney can basically eat a lot more pain than what they're currently receiving. As a matter of fact, that's been the chief. And
in fact, they're not really eating pain. They won that battle. They went around him and snuck some language in the bill that made it so that the board had no power over Reedy Creek. It's actually still Disney calling.
Yeah, for 30 years, the next 30 years. Original board has its power still. The board that DeSantis put in place is completely toothless. They are essentially a recommendation force until 20.
Well, what was their original role, anyways?
You mean the original board?
Yeah, what was
the new board? Oh, these are the ones who decided what buildings went where, what street placements. They were essentially the equivalent of city council for Disney.
Okay.
And as it is with the new rules, everything pretty much.
So what did he want to change?
He wanted to make it so
that Disney couldn't call the shots in Reedy Creek anymore, that it was administered by the state rather than by Disney. And so, let's say Disney wanted to create a new attraction. Normally, they would have to make all kinds of permits and apply to shit, and the state could say no and all this other stuff. And the board would say no, right? Because they're designed to be anti-Disney now. But they snuck. Here's the real thing: is the fact is, Republicans don't read shit, and Disney does. And so Disney was able to sneak a bunch of language in there that the Republicans in Florida just didn't read carefully enough. And then when it passed.
Number one, fuck you. Number two, you're right.
They snuck in 4 sentences. Four sentences changed that bill from being a DeSantis W to an Uber L for him.
Florida might want to talk to Arkansas Republicans. I'm just telling you.
What, they actually read it?
No, Jack, bring him up to speed on that on that one labor bill that we talked about.
Okay, so recently Arkansas passed a bill that would allow for a complete lack of age verification, age requirement, or certificate of work for minors to be employed. The actual rhetoric used to pass this was to help family farms that were struggling, etc. But in reality, when you follow the money, it was Ozark Mountain Poultry and Tyson who were pushing this bill to be passed because they got caught 2 years ago for employing 25 kids under the age of 15. And basically they want kids in their chicken plants again.
Were they Hispanic?
The ones that they were employing were a combination of white, Hispanic, and black, but it didn't matter. It was the fact that they were all under the age of 15 that was the problem. They were all legal. It wasn't like it was none of that.
Okay. See, I was wondering if it was like migrant labor because
they could try to slip from the too.
But now because they no longer require a kid to get a certificate of work or provide proof of their age, you are going to actually run into that issue more because now all of the stopgaps
they won't have to show their driver's license, basically.
Yep. You don't even have to show ID of any kind anymore.
So they'll figure out a way to slip that in.
Mm-hmm. Wait. So
hold on. Let me find you the bill.
Not a Republican W? I thought they were all a bunch of ANCAPs who love child labor.
This is a Republican horror show because the Republicans thought they were voting for farms, not for kids in factories. Hold on. Let me find the child labor bill.
Wait. So are like Arkansas voters are they pissed? Like what's the problem?
Many of us are, and it was because this one. Hold on. Let me find it. I'll actually find you the actual letter of the bill because it's just
the thing about laws like this is that they're time bombs. Like nothing might happen now, but some 12-year-old is going to get his arm chopped off in a combine or something. And then they're going to go, how did this happen? Oh, that bill. And then that's when the shit hits the fan.
Listen, we were just trying to get him to pull himself up by his bootstraps and burp.
Sure. But now he has to pull himself up with one arm. It's two bootstraps.
All right. So I'm pretty sick of all of this being a fucking nightmare.
Right?
Yeah.
No, but then that's like the thing. It's all right. I think I'm going from Nikki, I think I'm going for Nikki Haley if Ron DeSantis is going to fumble the bag this hard. So
I mean, Ron DeSantis has appeared in like an anti-nuclear campaign for like an anti-nuclear stump around Florida.
Was that recent?
Well, nuclear at the end of the day is competition for fossil fuels, and even though you do see like lip service on the right for nuclear, their first love is still oil and gas.
No, but it was something about Turkey Point. I don't recall the details, but yeah, it's there's all sorts of idiots out there trying to shut down Turkey Point, and I think DeSantis sort of stumbled into their clutches at one point.
Okay, but this is like... Yeah, never mind. I'm just going to shut up. Otherwise, I'll sound like a Democrat. It's okay.
I'll give you a second.
I get
I get the Republicans being the party of big oil. Like, there's a lot of things in that I think actually make sense politically, and I'm not going to salt them for that. But there is a couple of states that make sense to me being very pro-nuclear states, and Florida is number 2 in that list. And the fact that that's not happening, that's a little spicy for me.
The Treasure Coast power plant could power the entire state on its own if the infrastructure was built to do so. That's one of the 5 nuclear.
And that's what I was going to say.
Have.
You could literally do nukes, natural gas, and what would be the other one? Nukes, natural gas, and renewables. In Florida would be the energy grid of the future. So we have the best. I think we have a bigger growing season than anywhere else in the fucking country. Obviously we get plenty of rain and shit, but at the same time,
doesn't end. You're too far south. It just doesn't end.
Yeah, too wet.
What, our growing season?
Yeah, your growing season literally doesn't.
It's 11 months. Yeah, the growing season's 11 months.
Well,
and the only reason we take that 1 month off in Florida is so that we can renutrient the ground.
No, but that's exactly what I'm saying though, is like a combination of like nukes, renewable, and natural gas for like quick turn, peak, power demand and all that kind of
Why
stuff.
do you push natural gas? I'm just curious because we don't have the infrastructure.
Under capitalism, the only way that nuclear plants work is if they run at 100% all the time, and batteries will like help a little bit. But literally, yeah, they do need some extreme way of flexing. And so you need either super, super cheap syn fuel production infrastructure, like the reactor, the chemical reactors and all that need to be super cheap, or you need something else.
But I'm perfectly... Sorry, go ahead, buddy.
Oh, yeah, I'll simply say this. I think they need to do what the Californians need to do. It's like if anytime you've got spare electricity on the grid, just desalinate it, because while Florida has water, they're not California. You are talking about one of the fastest growing states with some of the most, diverse and built up metro areas. Like, they're going to have some water problems in the future, especially if...
Already do.
Yeah, so, like, I mean, what I'm saying here is...
so
like,
negative.
No. I'm not being negative at all. I'm saying like nuclear solves this, because anytime that you've got ambient power that you need to burn off, you literally throw it into desalination projects.
I wish that those,
or like Texas, just turn it into Bitcoin.
Oh, fucking Christ!
I mean, but here's the thing. The reason I asked about natural gas is because it would be about $22 billion to put in the infrastructure necessary for Florida to switch to natural gas, renewables, and nuclear alone. So if we were to remove the natural, because we don't have the infrastructure for natural gas, if you remove the natural gas, that would be, I mean, like, honestly, the better route, because you're saving on an outlay of infrastructure that's already being phased out of our country heavily. So why would you build an infrastructure for something that in 30 years is going to be completely obsolete?
We don't think that's necessarily true, but like I don't necessarily give a shit. Like if we built 2 nukes and like at peak we were still at like 80%, or we're like at 20% over, and then at downtime we're at 70% over, but then there's some mechanical process that we can like like for instance synth fuel production or some shit like that. If there's something else productive that we can do with the energy that will still help out the fucking state, I don't give a shit. So why in like this is also what pissed me off, because I don't think I got to ask Ty this. I felt like fusion was like they supposedly had a big fucking breakthrough, and Ty for whatever reason just kind of fucking rolled his eyes.
Oh, yeah. I did.
Can I talk about that? I want to talk about that.
Yeah, go ahead. By the way, just before we transition, thank you for joining us for this particular episode. I'm not ending the stream. We're going to do like the open panel segment, but I do want to, we got a few topics in the background that I definitely want to get into, and I'm tired of moderating, so let's do it. Before I do that, though, I want to thank all the panelists for being here, and I do want to say, if you do like this content, please give us some support. I'm actually in a little bit of need of money again. I've got a cell phone that broke, and apparently cell phone insurance is kind of a scam. Found out that the hard way. Apologize for that, but if you help me out with that, or getting my tooth fixed, because I got to go see a dentist here soon, I would very much appreciate any and all support that you guys are willing to give us. Tiberius D, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube. There's plenty of links down below, so you can help us out on Wishlist or whatever the fuck you want to do. I can't shill for shit, but I appreciate any help that you guys are willing to throw out. Thank you very much, and without further ado, go for it.
Woo! Let's soy about fusion. So Fusion, the National Ignition Facility, had a fusion breakthrough. They got more energy out of a reaction than they put in. And that's just a reaction. What they have is they have this little like gold cylinder thing with a bit of like frozen deuterium and tritium inside of it. They shot lasers inside the gold foil. It crisscrossed and bam, they got a thermal greater than break-even reaction. Unfortunately, it took 100 times as much energy to power the laser that they got to zap the thing as it got out. And this was not an energy project. This is not even something that's potentially an energy project. This is entirely to study the effects of fusion weapons. This is to validate the computer models we're doing to maintain.
I'm back on board.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, there you go. Your
always
weapons,
military
you got
first.
your bombs.
Just like that, I'm right back into it. No, well, okay, so fuck me. So I thought you said it was a positive reaction. How are you saying it's a positive reaction, but then it's a negative reaction because they had
because the output of the lasers to the energy that came out of their reaction was higher. But to actually power the lasers, aka put all the energy into the capacitors, they actually put more energy into the laser because of the time it takes to charge them up due to the way those lasers are powered. Basically, they had bleed off during the process, and that made it a null set. Or a negative set, technically. In fact, it was negative by 22%. So we are still 5 to 10 years before we hit the true break-even point, meaning the input and output. And that's just based on current progression of technology. There could be a leapfrog technology that comes out tomorrow, or one that's come out yesterday that I don't know about that could accelerate this timeline. But as of right now, with our current curve, 5 to 10 years.
So tired of being 5 years away from fusion.
Disclaimer, like, I'm not a nuclear physicist, but I had a friend who was, and like he described this to me very aptly. I have gone on record for saying I absolutely have no confidence in seeing commercial fusion in my lifetime. What you are actually trying to do is you are trying to mimic the interaction in the core of a star and make that on the surface of the planet. Yeah, I mean, we've been able to do that. It's called thermonuclear weapons, but then you have to contain that. Or you have to, fuel it. And that's the issue that we keep running into, is that no matter how we try going about this, is that either you've got the instance in creating the reaction is so uncontrollable to the point where you're literally going to nuke a city, or you have it to where it's so small that it actually doesn't generate any kind of power production. We got a problem.
Fuck it, fission. Let's go. What are we doing?
I'm with you on this. It's fission or go home, unfortunately.
Yes.
I'm just saying, what the fuck are we doing? Why are we waiting?
Well, no, I'm with Ty on this commercial.
Because fossil fuels are cheap.
Yeah, fuels are cheap, especially with the fracking revolution. But also, people still are scared fucking shitless of nuclear, and it's going to take people who are like serious about nuclear showing that we can do it, successfully and productively. We can talk about Chernobyl, we can talk about Fukushima, yada yada yada. Number one, the United States is the safest when it comes to nuclear by a country fucking mile. And then the people who need to be investing in nuclear, but can't seem to do math, are folks like the Germans, who should be really good at this shit, but they keep thinking that this is a bad idea.
Germany shut down 29 No, sorry, that's the world. They're like 24 gigawatts. So the world has shut down 29 gigawatts since the last report on 1.5 degrees. That's insane.
So what, do they have an ace up their sleeve, or was COVID their first attempt at depopulation and they are going to kill all the boomers with the next Kung flu? Because seriously, no, I'm serious, because what the fuck? How can you be simultaneously telling me, hey guys, we only have 10 years or 12 years or 50 years to keep it within this realm of climatological fucking bullshit. We need to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C. How can they say that with one fucking sentence, and then in the next fucking sentence be talking about decommissioning nukes? I literally do not understand it.
Because boomers are, I know we've had this conversation before, but boomers just don't fucking get it. I'm sorry, but they don't.
But now I'm actually worried about the COVID shot I took. Are there nanites inside it that are gonna turn on in 2023 and
please don't visit Fabius Bile. Your brain is rotted. You need to have the pus drain.
But for real, we're getting tornadoes.
Listen, it's the only thing that makes sense, to be honest.
At this point, we're getting tornadoes in California.
Well, you get tornadoes in California, but they're not super common. But here's the real global warming oh shit kind of moment. We used to, in the Midwest, we get something called a derecho. I don't know if I say that correctly because it is it's a Latin word. But what it basically means is that you have this storm that would come through and it has straight line winds that would be hurricane force in the middle of the continent. We used to see those once every 3 years. We're now once every 6 months. That's my back of the woods. Connor can probably can preach about how these hurricanes are getting way fucking stupider.
No, see,
Skipper,
all right. See,
yeah.
this is my thing. Is like, all right, I got to meme a little bit, and then I actually probably have to go talk to the wife and hang out and stuff. But the no, in Florida or whatever, we're such a hit or miss fucking place that like I grew up. I think it was like Hurricane Andrew in like 1992 or some shit or whatever. It just like absolutely, excuse my French. Like as a matter of fact, I won't even say it. It did horrible things to the anus of Florida and just like annihilated like an entire like beachhead in like South Florida.
I was in Miami for Andrew.
Right. And like when you talk to people from Andrew or whatever, they had fucking PTSD because they were fucked up. Because basically,
I saw a McDonald's drinking straw put into a concrete telephone pole.
Right. There's stories like that where like legitimately the destruction was so insane that it was godlike. People had never seen anything like it before. Whereas in my time, I think in 2007 or something like that, it might have been 2004, we got hit with 3 hurricanes within like 2 weeks or whatever.
Francis and Jean, that was 2004.
Yeah, and they all hit the same spot. And we're like, what the fuck? What is going on?
The Eye of Francis and the Eye of Jean hit landfall less than a mile apart. And they hit 3 weeks apart. I was in Jensen Beach, Florida for those.
Yeah, you need to.
I went 21 days.
You're out of Florida now, right?
Yes, I went 21 days without power. I basically felt like I was back in the 1850s because I lived next to railroad tracks. We were heating up on freaking canteen stoves and stuff like that. It was bad.
Well, okay, so I'm happy that you moved because apparently the hurricanes were chasing you. But the point being, like since then it was wild. But you go 2 weeks without power. You smell like shit. You eat all the food that's in your refrigerator and pantry. You do what you can. Blah blah blah. You eat fucking canned shit for a couple of weeks. You clean it up. I'm in Central Florida, so like I never take a direct hit. It always drops down a category by the time it hits me. So that like no, Floridians can shake that shit off, but in 20 years, if I see like a category 6 or whatever, if it's literally like at the max of a fucking category 5 to the point that it can no longer be categorized, you better fucking believe I'm gonna start taking fucking hatchets to like fossil fuel vehicles and shit. Because I want to leave a planet to my son.
Let's wait till we get there.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So guys,
I feel like you're not factoring in the delay here. Like if we fix it now, then the problem gets better in 50 years. Like that's how like slow of a pace you're talking about. So if you want to fix a problem 20 years from now, you got to go back in time 30 years and start blowing up cars.
But this is my beef though, is how do you square what you just told me, which is we should have been building nukes, changing energy infrastructure, infrastructure, all that kind of stuff 30 years ago. How do you square that with everybody fucking decommissioning their fucking nukes? How do we square that?
That's it.
You don't.
It's get rich
it was
quick.
Dumb. Like
absolutely.
Germany is the poster child for dumb when it comes to the energy, and it kind of really highlighted itself after
the Germans
after
are the
war
smartest among us. They're the smartest.
Wait. Let me hit this. Okay, so like I know you're somewhat familiar with European politics, Connor. You had Angela Merkel, right? She is a quintessential fucking boomer of her age. She knows how to get some shit done, and what she can get done, she did really, really well. But anything that is relatively new, like something from the last 20 years, like that administration knew nothing about. So like climate change didn't fucking do hardly anything about except solar, and literally Germany is the worst place for solar ever. But on top of that, look at their internet policy. Like this is clearly just one of those deals to where this administration did not understand anything that was new. And that's why they've kind of gone down this particular track to even when you have the best leadership, if they aren't in touch with like what is going on, and let's be honest here, green tech is hardcore political and there is a way too much misinformation about any and all of it, then yeah, we've got a serious issue to where like I don't even think most millennials understand green tech right now.
Well, it's not just that, but Merkel had to keep a coalition together, and Greens were kind of the kingmakers in Germany for the longest time, and they are specifically anti-nuclear, have been since the 80s.
And
they really got turbocharged after Chernobyl. and then their second turbocharging happened after Fukushima. And so they've been able to, like, keep in mind, the Greens are also part of the current coalition. So they're able to, in both directions, sort of discourage, like, all they wanted to do, the big request that was being made of this new German government after the Russian invasion was, hey, why don't we keep open, why don't we delay the closing of those last nuclear power plants for 6 months? Let's just do that for 6 months, just so we can get through the winter. And that was like a Herculean, like mammoth effort to get that.
Barely passed.
Okay.
Barely passed.
Before I go, I'm going to say, just don't be surprised if we experience a Category 6 hurricane if I run for like High Chancellor of the centrist fascist party inside the United States. We'll be eco-fascist, we'll protect trans rights, but we're going to blow through all this fucking red tape to make some fucking nuclear power, because I am sick of this bullshit. But anyways, my wife did want to hang out with me tonight and all that kind of stuff, but I parasocially love you guys. It was great to be back on Saturday Night Lights. I'm going to go talk to chat for 5 minutes and then raid one of you guys and call it a night.
It was great to see you, sir.
Before you go, what you need to look at is there was a hydroelectric project that was proposed on the St. Johns River up in North Florida. Like push for that, because that goes through like 12 counties in Florida and would supplement almost one of the nuclear power plants with the amount of power it would have produced.
Based. All right, I'll run for the High Chancellor of the centrist fascist party of Florida first, and then we'll figure out the rest of the country.
Easy peasy.
So, all right, catch up.
Great to see you. All right, so if anyone's wanting in, let me know. We'll go from there. I am going to have to step away for just a moment here in a second, but System had to leave.
Pop in.
No, it's fine. Yeah, if anyone kind of rolls in, definitely pull him in. System had to leave because he's got some family stuff he was dealing with. But guys, like, AI is freaking me out a little bit, because right now I'm enjoying it a lot. Like, there's a lot of these videos on YouTube where they have Trump, Biden, and Obama just like either like making tier lists or like debating something or whatever. And like, for real, I'm loving it. It sounds like the real thing, and like people have their characterizations down pretty well. Oh, my favorite is Trump, Biden, Obama, and Ben Shapiro play Magic the Gathering. They've done like 8 episodes of this now, and it's fucking hilarious.
For the Magic the Gathering one, the one where they play D&D is better.
I haven't seen that. I'll have to go look for it. But anyway, like this shit's freaking me out a little bit, because like the voice thing, that's not a big thing. Like, I think a lot of people know voices can be faked. But have you all seen this latest iteration of AI art? And what we're really seeing now is AI videos that are coming out where it's just like, fuck, you can't tell it's not real.
Evidence is going to get wacky in the future.
The Tom Cruise one.
I don't know what you're saying.
That's actually not nearly as hard as you think, because of the way metadata is embedded into all the digital data. Like, there's ways. Trust me, there are ways. Like, what? The people to determine whether like, this is one of these things. We have been doing digital video and digital still forensics for so damn long. I'm not saying it's not going to create a new hurdle.
Yeah,
like, no, I'm not going to sit here and say some dumb crap take like that. But in reality, we do have mechanisms that already exist that will help us get around that hurdle. It's just going to be
sort of, but you also, the public doesn't trust experts, right? So
that's the
you can have a metadata guy go, oh, this is a fake video, and here's the math as to why. And then your average dumb shit's going to be like, I don't believe you. You're just corrupt. Like,
well, I was talking for court, but when we're talking the public, now we're dealing with a freaking time bomb. This is a bouncing Betty with a hair trigger.
Yeah.
Yep. Like, if somebody releases a video, like, if, say, during George Floyd, and it was doctored to a way where you could see where
he was smoking a crack pipe right before he got arrested.
Yeah, doing something wild, it would change the course of everything at that point.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And just spreading that through the internet before anybody can debunk it would be the biggest issue, because a lie travels far faster than the truth ever could.
And then if social media tries to censor doctored videos, everyone's going to say that's just censorship. Like, let me decide whether I think it's doctored.
Hey, well, damn, we got Doghouse and IPA in here. You all need to turn on your cameras.
Yeah, play League. Hang on. You're talking about, with AI, like I like it spread quicker. With I remember very vividly there was a shit ton of stuff that came out very quickly with that. It already does that without AI. Lies spread quick as fuck because everybody's got a phone nowadays.
But no,
Now they're more believable.
Hold on, this is an expression that this is an expression that dates back to fucking Samuel Clemens, guys. Bad news will travel around the world before good news can pull its boots on. Like this has been a problem since before we had digital communication or telegraphs even. So no, this is a human issue. Technology just changes how we use it.
But the
It makes it
scale is
faster. It makes it so much faster and so much more effective.
Well, I would say this, because here's the thing. I don't think that I'm not worried about AI in terms of the speed of which people can do things, because we quite literally saw that with George Floyd. Like if we're talking about George Floyd, we saw that literally happen in real time, where there was somebody who saw something happening, immediately recorded and immediately uploaded. I would argue even that doing AI would take more time than to simply record something, clip chimp it, and upload it. It would be much quicker to do that than to have an AI actually do it. Like, in other words, you have to sit down.
I'd be quicker for you and I. For people who know how to use AI, oh my god, dude, the stuff they can do is amazing.
So what I'm trying to say, though, is like, okay, the idea is that there's an actual event that happened. Let's take George Floyd, for example, as we're using this example, right? You have an event that happens, but you're going to have an AI that's able to manipulate that. You have to take that source data, somehow convert it over to an AI, and then do that, versus someone who literally takes out their iPhone, records it, and then like clip chimps it, and then uploads it to like Twitter or whatever. That probably takes like 2-3 seconds, as opposed to an AI. Now, maybe there's an app out there for
it takes an incredible amount of computing power to do it too.
Yeah, have you heard of Metasploit?
Well, I'm getting there.
That's what I was about to say. Is that like an app? I was just about to say, if there's like an app, then maybe I can agree.
Yeah. Way back when like computer intrusion was an art. And like you literally had people sitting down at the keyboard, like writing code to get the scripts going to break into the DOE or whatever. And then, back in the 90s, there was Cult of Dead Cow and Metasploit. And they basically packaged up all of the scanning and intrusion stuff into a package together so that you would like have a one button script kiddie own the network kind of thing. And this is where I think AI is going, because literally this is my specialization is video tech. So like we are in a call right now, it's connected to one of my video channels that goes to other hardware. And, here in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be able to like pipe this video to a number of different computers in my home network.
But you see the difference. You see the difference though in the two different scenarios. One is like an event happening in real time, and then like we're talking about the timing between something being uploaded, say via like say Twitter, versus say an AI like manipulating that video to show like if we're being.
So if I'm 30 seconds behind, it's fake.
What are you talking about?
Like I'm saying that, okay, say one of you is here in the Discord call in a phone app sending me live video on location from the spot, and then like it is ingested into my video system, my processing system. It goes to the CPU farm that is doing the AI analysis and re-encoding, and it's like delayed a bit. But hey, heck, if I'm putting $10,000 of
my camera's not on.
Hold on, Doghouse. I can simplify this for you. A year ago, there was an app you could get on an iPhone where you could literally do.
I'm not disagreeing with that. The AI doesn't exist. To be clear,
I'm trying to explain how fast it is. This is a year ago. This isn't what we have today. What we have today is faster. A year ago, there was a program you could get on iPhone where you could record 5 minutes of video of your face, and it would put your face into any blockbuster movie flawlessly. Like, you would not be able to tell it was not CGI'd in there. And it took less than 5 minutes. That was a year ago. And that was processing a 2-hour movie and doing
what I'm saying is,
what you're talking about for a 30-second to 45-second video or 2-minute video is going to be fractions of a second comparatively.
It'll happen in real time eventually.
I was going to say, so what I'm saying here is, I'm not to be clear, I'm not arguing that AI doesn't exist or that AI can't manipulate. What I'm arguing is if the concern with AI is that it can be done quickly, what I'm saying is that we already have something that can be done very quickly via phones. So in other words, it shouldn't be that's the concern, is what I'm getting at.
And this is where Soyadel's question, do you think a 30-second variable in the post time is going to be recognized or noticed? Because that's the time frame we're talking about.
It's not the time frame. It's not the time frame.
I don't. Well, and it's the quality of the. It's also the quality of the video as well. I mean,
let's Alley Cat. Let's talk about what year. Today, yes, you're correct.
Today, okay. So here's the thing. So when you're superimposing one image into another, the biggest giveaway is lighting. Right? The lighting that goes to the person in the one scene is going to be different than the lighting in the other scene. And by detecting those lighting differences is the best way to detect AI.
Does AI model have the same fuck-ups that a human imposed superimposition has?
Well, you can have pixel overlap too, right? Like, so when you embed one image to another, you get like the subpixels behind you that may not blend properly with the background. You can run into that too. But the biggest giveaway is the lighting. Like literally, I've got a light coming this way and this way, where the scene that I'm being put in, the light may be coming in this way, and you'll see shadowing differences on both scenes because of that.
And you build that into your model. You build that in the training set, and you test for it.
It's possible you can eliminate some of that. I'm just trying to say that there's always a fingerprint.
Oh yeah,
right?
No, and it'll take a long time for us to be able to authenticate, like Jax is saying, is we will eventually...
We are talking about the public. We aren't talking about what will stand up in court, because I already believe that we will be able to differentiate between the two, even of the best AI art, because of those artifacts you're talking about. We are talking about the general public's perception and whether or not that 30 to 45 second delay of posting, because when you're talking a server farm of 40 to 50 processors, yeah, it will be about 30 seconds, because my shitty 8-core processor, single machine, can process that 2-hour video in 3 minutes.
I'm just want to make sure, like, what is the particular argument that you think I'm arguing for? Because, like, I'm not saying that there isn't.
You're thinking that the speed, the delay is going to somehow make a significant difference in the public perception of these faked videos.
No.
Whereas clip chimping, whereas what you're suggesting, clip chimping, is one of those things that people are now used to. It is a known quantity. It is the equivalent of the paparazzi.
That's not what I'm arguing. I'm telling you right now, like, that's not what I'm arguing.
Okay.
Wade sat there and said that one of the concerns with AI is how quickly things can be done. And my argument is that it's already being done quickly via clip chimping and being on scene real time. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that AI can't be done quickly. I'm not saying that AI, isn't capable of doing these things. All I'm saying is that
Leafy's point was it will be able to be done quickly with a greater degree of quality than human hands will be able to do.
It will be done quickly. I don't doubt that that's going to happen. But what I'm saying is it's already happening, even with the clip chimping, right? Like, it's literally like, the whole George Floyd thing. That's why I use that as a specific example. That took the internet literally by storms within a matter of probably a minute. I don't remember it very vividly. But like I said, that's why I'm saying, if your concern is that AI is going to be done quickly and then it's going to alter things very quickly, yeah, it's something that could happen. But what I'm saying is it's already happening without AI. Is what I'm saying.
Oh, so because people are dumb. Yeah, no, you're right.
I guess then what was the point of arguing against what we were saying? Because the speed and the quality is going to make this problem.
The only thing I was arguing with, though, was not. I was trying to.
Well, it came off as one. No, that's kind of agree. Yeah,
if anything, I was probably agreeing with y'all. Like, I wasn't trying to argue with y'all. That I think y'all are misunderstanding what I was arguing. I think that's what I was trying to argue, is the fact that y'all are misunderstanding my argument.
It came off as arguing. That's on us. That's my bad. Yeah.
Okay, so can we take it from a different perspective? So everybody remembers, like, I'm going court cases again, so maybe it's a little different than what you guys are talking about, is that, like, DNA evidence when it was first introduced, right? And then all of a sudden it was like a smoking gun for quite some time. But then it took some time for people to be like, well, wait a second, it only does this, it only does that. Like, people were trying to understand how the technology worked and what it could and couldn't do. And then there's issues of it the technology got better, obviously, to be able to sequence and whatnot, but still there was, things that they could deal with and whatnot. And now in court cases, it's no longer a smoking gun. It's just one more piece of evidence. Why isn't the same for AI?
I mean, we haven't, as far as I know, we haven't seen a case of AI being used in court in this capacity. So it's one of those things, we haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
And very
I'm just trying to
likely
say over time it just becomes another factor. Like, to me, what I find brilliant about AI is it's going back to is instead of everybody just believing what they see, people are actually going to have to be discerning again. They're going to have to learn how to trust.
So, and realistically, we've kind of started to see some like inklings of what this would look like with Kyle Rittenhouse, for example. And there was another case with Curtis Reeves in Florida. He was he was like a former retired sheriff, and he ended up shooting, he's known as the popcorn shooter. Anyways, both of those, they tried to introduce film, but the film was very grainy and tough to see. This was very particular with the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. So I would imagine something along those similar lines that AI would have to be tested in court to even see if it'd be admitted as evidence.
It wasn't admitted, right? Like, that was the biggest complaint about them trying to get that evidence into court. Says, from this far away drone shot, you can clearly see Kyle did blah, blah, blah. And it was a bunch of black spots. And then they went into a long thing about the video was AI enhanced and that they couldn't trust the results of it.
Interpolation or something like that, right? Yeah, that's what it was, interpolation.
Oh, I know. Now, I'm not going to sit there and say that was a good or bad argument. I'm just sitting there saying is AI has already been tested in court.
Yeah, I think this is one way of it being tested. I don't think it's the test. Like, we haven't actually seen. I mean, I guess if you consider interpolation AI related, I don't know if that, but it's the closest we're going to probably see. Yeah,
enhance.
It's probably the closest we're going to get to that until it actually happens. Like, yeah.
Again,
but I would imagine there's probably let me ask you, from somebody who handles AI though, is there a way, because the issue with the Kyle Rittenhouse one is they were literally bringing out a TV trying to like microscope this shit. Is there with AI though, this is a little different though, where there's an actual code right behind that AI, so like it wouldn't just necessarily be a video feed, there'd be some kind of a like program in the background. Like, I don't know how that works. I'm not an AI expert.
What people call AI and what is AI is a computer science conundrum. Like, there is no real definition of AI, because AI can be it can be discrete or it could be not discrete, right? Like, so what you're talking about is an algorithm. It was actually, again, interpolation, pixelization. People say, oh, that's AI. Well, is it? Yeah, kinda, but it's the same AI that determines whether or not you can pick out 6 pictures that have buses on them. I mean, it's what an algorithm versus an AI is kind of black box computer science,
not general AI. So there's basically a junior level college course out there called Theory of Mind. Some people take it early. There's great philosophy courses on this. What is the idea? Like, how do you know a language? How do you do something with a fact or an idea that demonstrates there is a mind behind that thing, and the demonstration that there is an active mind that is able to discern, learn, disseminate, and teach, that's general AI. If the mastery of allegory and being able to communicate deep concepts to any other person, I think some humans can't even do this, but that's general AI.
The definitions are loose, right?
No, well, Theory of Mind has a pretty firm definition of general AI. Specific AI, that's what 99% of people talking about AI are talking about, like specific task-based AI, where and here's the definition of that: can it fool a human? That's the Turing test. This is specific AI.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up. Yep.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay,
yeah, go ahead.
So now the funny part with that is that the Turing test was actually passed in the 70s. Right? Like, we've had natural language algorithms that are able to detect and speak human speech since the 70s, maybe even the 60s. And that could potentially fool a person, which technically passes the Turing test, right?
Can I ask you?
And so So what now we've seen is actually like robots that have this natural language stuff in it that are like speaking to you as a humanoid life form, and it's like, oh, is this one? Well, yeah, okay, that passes it too. But I don't know if necessarily fooling somebody once or twice is necessarily a valid test for anything. Tell you the truth.
What I'm trying to figure out is this, like, because I'm viewing it from the lens of a courtroom. There's two questions I have. One is there a code behind a video feed? So, like, let's say it's a security camera, for example. Is there a code that you could see that an AI has been applied to that video?
You could have a code that shows an AI has not been applied, and that's what Jack was. Jack stepped away, so I'll go ahead and say. Basically, you would have a random number generator cryptographics combined with a cryptographic sequence inside the camera. So now we're talking about security cameras, right? So you're paying thousands of dollars for these things, sure. And they will have a security log. They will have an authenticated record, like, you use your credit card on a website and does get stolen. That kind of a encryption scheme, except instead of protecting the information, it's authenticating the information. And so you're chasing down the audit log of what actually happened there to Kyle Rittenhouse, and it will be from a security camera, so that as long as like the data is there and the security trace is a part of that, it will hold up in court. And that's what Jack was getting at.
Okay.
So like, because that's what I was going to say too, is, and this I think this is what happened with Kyle Rittenhouse, if I remember correctly, was they brought in an expert to look at that, quote unquote expert. Well, I don't know. I don't remember the full extent of whether or not they're expert. Anyways, point of what I was going to ask, my second question was, would there be an expert though that could look at that and see if the video was altered in some manner or another?
Yes,
because it sounds like it could.
And a good expert, a good person who understands video encoding technology and the iPhone and all this, would be able to tell you, oh yeah, you can't step frame by frame because there's interpolation and the iPhone records at this frame rate, and because the lighting situation, this is what was going on, whatever, or drone or whatever is going on. So yeah, an expert would be able to say,
gotcha.
You have to watch it in a loop because that's how the technology works, and the codec for that MP4 or whatever file works, is that you basically have to look at like this quarter second of video in a loop and interpret what your brain thinks about that. You can't step by step back and forth because that's not how it is meant to communicate the information, and it's really a facsimile of what's happening. You can't take a single pixel frame grab and make a determination of fact because it's interpolated. And that's what the defense argued, and they're kind of right. I'm a lefty and I'm soying out about this whole thing, but yeah, they're kind of right.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say. Like, I mean, to answer the broader question of whether or not AI would be a problem for evidentiary reasons, based on what y'all have told me so far, if an expert can testify as to whether or not there has been any kind of altering to the video, and there's a source code or something, like something that can like identify it, I don't actually see it being an issue for the court system, as long as there can be an expert or somebody who can be called to question that video, and obviously not be put in front of a jury until it's ironed out. But I also think too, like, I'm trying to think of this in a practical sense, because the chain of custody.
The thing I have to ask, at the point when you're in court, would you have somebody to defend you that would be able to?
Well, so that's what I was going to say, right? Is like, I'm trying to think of this in a practical sense of where an AI would be used in a manner to like manipulate these videos to win the favor of, say, like the prosecution, for example. And what I think of immediately is the chain of custody with that particular piece of evidence. So like, I'm trying to think of how this would be in a practical sense, because technically that video ideally would be pulled from the security camera, however that's done, whether it's USB, whatever the fuck it is. And then it's going to be sealed, it's not going to be touched, and maybe it's going to be like copied. I don't know the exact court process for that chain of custody, but there'd be a log for that as well. And so I can't see how from that original point of being pulled to the lawyers looking at it, that it wouldn't be logged that, okay, hey, we received this source, and now it's been altered. Like that would be called out immediately. So like I'm trying to think of it in a practical sense of how like AI could even make its way in front of a judge. I mean, obviously interpolation is like kind of closest we've gotten to that, but it's not like it was done like maliciously where an AI would be used maliciously, right? Like putting the gun in front of in the person's hands, right? I'm just trying to think of this in a practical sense, and it just does it. I can't see a situation.
The fear is when it's published that way, right? Like, so let's go back to the big thing with Cutie Cinderella, and where somebody made porn with her face in it. Like that was published that way, right? Like it was it was published with the AI already in it, right? There wasn't an original source to go to.
But that was like, like if we look at it from like, for example, like if the issue at hand was the fact that there was like some kind of crime committed based on that itself, then that is the source, right? Like that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a different.
I think.
But how do you get the original, right? That's the big question. What happens if what's admitted to the court is the AI version, and the original is never introduced?
And let's bring it back to 2016. Yeah. Let's bring this back to the DNC emails, and like what we found out later is after the DNC emails were authenticated that we got a partial read from WikiLeaks, we got like some very slight modifications, and we got an incomplete picture, and it was too late. It was we already got the bullshit, so we're done. It's in the court of public opinion. It's going to hurt us.
I would wonder though if you don't have the original before the AI, one, if it would be relevant to the particular case, whatever that case may be, and two, what the evidentiary rules are in regards to that original piece. Like I don't know what those evidentiary rules are that you have to have that original piece and not necessarily just the AI. I don't know what that would even look like.
In the case that the original was what started the case in the first place, the original AI piece of work was what caused the court case in the first place. Like it was used to proclaim something happened.
But that's what I'm saying, right? Like, so like if the claim is that this person's head was like AI'd onto the person's body, then it seems like it would, at least in my opinion, be, I mean, I guess it could be relevant in the sense that if you had the original, then you could prove that this wasn't, this was in fact an AI that was put on there. But that would be but that would be the question is does the case rely that this particular AI being on the head is the issue, or is it that the case is like some other crime? Like, so that's why I said it depends on the relevance of what the issue is at hand, I guess.
Right. So let's get down to the implementation details. So if you have this, the data is the data, and it'll have a log and the video, and you can copy that as many times as you want. But if your source of truth has been lost, like it's a physical camera with whatever 256, 512 quantum, etc. computing, record, authenticated record comes from, and you take that camera and you smash it and burn it up in a fire, then you've lost your chain of custody. So this is sort of where we would be in the future, is if we're trying to authenticate an image or video against the source of truth, but the source of truth has been lost. The physical artifact that is like, yes, this is the camera, and I am the officer that came into the business where the 7-Eleven that was robbed, and I took that camera out and I put it in our evidence locker, and oops, we lost it. Sorry.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't necessarily have to have the physical camera like to have necessarily a chain of custody. You could take
that's the only reliable thing. And so there is okay, so let me give you a little bit of background. I have done financial services, and I've done PIN key encryption for your credit cards. And the way that works is there is this device called the HP Atala. That is a gapped, one-way only thing that does encryption, and you can't get into the encryption keys on that physical device without destroying it. That's the ideal of it. And so what I'm saying is that, yes, this physical thing must exist somewhere, and be completely, perfectly protected and not intruded upon. And if you can't verify physically that it is there, it has not been tampered with physically, and it has not been intruded upon and decrypted or whatever, then that's the only way you can actually prove this AI defeating chain of custody.
So even if, like, I'm sorry, I'm trying to follow. So like, it wouldn't, I'm trying to understand how the camera in and of itself and not the memory, like let's say you took that camera and you uploaded the video to your computer. So you're saying that you, even though you have, do what?
Yeah, I'll just rephrase what he said. So what happens is the camera has a device on it, a computer chip that basically takes the image from the camera and runs it through an algorithm and spits it to the memory. So unless you have right? So yeah, you have to have that original chip, otherwise the memory may be corrupted or copied or whatever.
But this would be in the case of like an AI being the issue, not like, for example, if we just had like a layman's case of like somebody killing somebody and there's a surveillance camera. That's a little bit of a different situation where you may not necessarily have to have the camera unless the point of contention for this entire case relies on a surveillance camera, right?
But that is the method that you would have to authenticate the data. That is it. That is, like, if you're encrypted, like Alley Cat's suggesting, then yeah, you just can't see it without understanding the key. But as soon as you understand the key, like you've cracked the key, and then the encryption is worthless. And so the point of the verification log being, being outside of the data is that you can't like brute force it. It's like it's just a stream of bits, and it's you ask an oracle, a third party, whether it matches or not, and that is again another part of this chain of custody, is that it can't be brute forced. So levels of trust, it is a complex problem to devise and design this kind of a system, but I can absolutely see it would work. And in my professional opinion, physical chain of custody is gonna really matter when it comes to these things.
Okay,
I see what you're saying. So in the cases of where AI is like the point of contention in the case, then yeah, I can understand what you're saying.
I can't
like it's
trust
important
this
to have
image.
that.
I don't know where it came from, and it's like, oh no, I'm the officer. I found that camera. I took it into our evidence locker. It has not been disturbed. You can look at it here in court. You can see the security seal physically on the camera. Let's plug it into the memory card. It says, yes, that's authentic.
I see what you're saying. As opposed to like say something like a layman's case where you have like a murder case and it's like, okay, well they take the surveillance footage off of it and submit it into evidence because it's surveillance. It's a little bit different. So I think I see what you're saying.
And they just trust it because of course they trust it because that's what we have today.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what. But we do see pushback on some of these things in the case of, like I said, the most famous one of it being Kyle Rittenhouse. But there was this issue in a lesser known case of, damn it, I said his name earlier. The one in Florida, like I said, the popcorn shooter guy. They actually had video footage of the incident, but it was like the camera recorded in like 3 second or like 5 second like blocks, and it was super dark in the theater and you could barely see anything other than like smoke. It was really weird. They obviously didn't take in the camera because I don't think it was an issue of like it being like that's that camera that was used for this video recording. Like that's not the issue, right?
Person. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like an issue like you can't identify the person or anything like that. So like the issue wasn't the camera being the source, which I think is what y'all are saying is like in an AI situation where it's hard to differentiate between what you're looking at versus like was this like I see what you're saying. I get it. I get it now. So I can see where that. Yeah. So in these cases,
yeah, what he's saying is it proves what the original was. It's there to prove what the original is. It becomes much harder when you don't know what the original is, and that was what we were talking about before. But then, like I was trying to get at before, is that there's always going to be fingerprints on AI, and yes, AI will get better, so those fingerprints will change, but they'll still be left, and we will get stuck in this like this is the standard security. This is what I was going to say. This is the standard security problem that exists everywhere when it comes to computer authentication authentication and security. It's that you will always have techniques to make things more secure, and you always have hackers to break that security. And it'll just be cat and mouse going back and forth. And you just got to keep up with this. Why you got to keep updating your Norton antivirus all the freaking time, because shit changes. So again, I think it gets back to the whole idea is that video evidence will not be what it is today. Like, that's going to be the end result of all this, is that it's no longer going to be a smoking gun anymore. Hey, this could have been faked. Well, how do you know? Well, our expert says it was. Our expert says it wasn't. You see where this goes? That's going
I see
to
what
be
you're
the future.
saying, but like I would imagine. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know all the evidentiary rules, okay? But and all the different objections that could be even raised with something like that. I can't imagine that if there's no bearing that this was ever altered in any kind of form or fashion. We can already, and the thing is too, is like we can already argue this. Like I said, Kyle Rittenhouse. So like I don't know if AI. I don't know. My head's fried. Maybe I'm just fucking talking out my ass and wanting to hear myself. I don't fucking know, dude.
Sorry, you got to get in on this. Like this is totally a you conversation to some degree.
No, actually, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about right now.
Pay attention, motherfucker.
It makes sense because he's wearing a UT fucking hat. No wonder he doesn't know what the fuck he's saying.
Hey, look, hey. No, actually, I mean, I follow the AI conversation, but the court case part, I'm not really sure what's going on with the court.
No, I'd rather move it on to like more practical advances. Like, I've got a couple good examples that may be good starters. Is one, my mother works in an art gallery, and she's one of the curators there. And she was on the thing, and this one lady came in, and she had a lot of art that she wanted to display in the gallery. And a lot of the artists were like, "We don't want this in here. This isn't art." And she made her case, and she was eventually let in. And what it was that she uses like 3 different AI programs and different filters. And the way I best explain it, which anybody in computer science probably know this, is that she's using an AI program much like somebody would use Adobe, right? She's using it to generate the image and manipulate it to get the vision that she's looking for, and the end result is her work. There's still art in that. And that's the conclusion that they came to, and they say, hey, this is real art, even though it was computer generated. Like, we've had computer generated art for quite some time. This is just the next medium or the next phase of it. The other issue is something like a Chat GPT-4. Like, I just watched a video about a guy, if people are in the .NET world, his name's Nick Chappas, whatever. He's and what he did was he had an interview question, and he submitted the interview question like, how do I refactor this code? And he submitted it to ChatGPT-4, and ChatGPT-4 spit out the answer, and he went through it and he questioned him on it, and it turned out that it gave him rather good code. And like he was saying, would have been an hour-long interview, ChatGPT was able to pass that interview in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Here's the real question for any of you legal nerds. I'd be really curious on this. And I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyways. If you were to type something into ChatGPT and it were to spit out something that is false, okay, like let's say patently false. Let's say it says Alley Cat is a criminal murderer.
All the time.
And then you... Hey.
Allegedly.
I know. Allegedly, right? Hey, allegedly, right? Okay, I got to watch what I'm saying here, all right? Listen, I'm talking hypothetically, all right? Any of you freaking lawyers out there waiting to sue the shit out of me, I ain't got $1 to my name. But anyways.
Let's go.
You know where I'm going with this. If ChatGPT were to spit it out and then you were to post it, would that still be defamation? I would imagine so, right? Even though ChatGPT was the one that generated the message, you probably posted it, so you
I don't know if it's defamation, but I am of the camp. I am of the camp that whatever a person creates through an AI is their work, not the AI's work. I believe in that because I believe we hold that standard again for all computer-generated images and work, right? So why does it change? Better question.
What if I were to take a screenshot of ChatGPT?
No, Alley Cat has a point, right? Like if you make something in Photoshop, even though you're using a piece of software to generate that, like you're still responsible for the content of it.
Yes, that's exactly my point.
But what? So like, if I were to type up like on ChatGPT, "Hey ChatGPT, can you tell me what Alley Cat's criminal background is?" And it goes, "Alley Cat's a whatever," and then I'm like, "Yo, Twitter, guess what I found out from ChatGPT?" Would that be libel?
I think I got an example.
Okay,
I have an example to make this
more like realistic case of this. Like you tell ChatGPT to like cyberbully somebody, like, and all of a sudden ChatGPT like. But here's the thing: ChatGPT like causes somebody to or suggests that somebody like delete themselves. Right? You're still the one directing the AI to generate this thing.
Okay. So
here's an example that everybody can get on board with. If you tell AI to create child corn, then you are absolutely liable for that, and I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
Stop. Here's my question: what if you never publish it? That's the question.
Great question.
That I think is a big line. Yep. I think it's a big line. Right.
But I think about in terms of this, like whether it makes it ChatGPT saying it if you tell ChatGPT to say it. Like, isn't this exactly what we went through with Wikipedia? Like Stephen Colbert went on and told his audience to mass change a Wikipedia article, and then said, "Well, it must be true because Wikipedia said it." Like, obviously, like we you know that was parody in part, but he was also saying like this is the danger of like putting too much emphasis on these tools as an authority. Like the tools are useful, we should use them for sure. I'm one of the few educators like in my building who actually tells their students it's okay to use Wikipedia. And it's okay to use ChatGPT too, and for the same reasons, because we know that we're the ones giving input to these things, and then when the output comes out, we're not citing it as a source because that would be circular, but we're using what comes out of it in order to sort of guide us into finding real sources.
Hey, Rich, can I ask you a question about this? Because you said you allow your students to use it.
Yeah.
I'll go even further. Okay, let's ignore the libel and defamation. Do you think it would be a copyright infringement if you were to take any of those words from ChatGPT?
Why?
Like, let's say there's like some kind of a copyright infringement where somebody claims that these words that somebody generated, like they're like, hey, tell me a story about blah 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 blah, and ideally ChatGPT does take out certain. From my understanding of how ChatGPT works is that it takes certain like information from the internet, right? So like inevitably some of that information is going to be like, you know, kind of a copy, right? And so you end up saying, okay, cool, I'm going to write this story. So then you take it, you write it, you publish it, whatever the hell you want to do with it. Someone comes at you and says, hey, this is a copyright. So do you think that would be a copyright?
To be a certain amount.
I think you are responsible for it. Sure. I think you have. I think if you're using I think if you're going to publish something that wasn't, I'm assuming that the company. I'm assuming that Microsoft like has lawyers who work on this stuff all the time. That is to say, they're writing rules to say, okay, don't lift material verbatim where permissions aren't available for that. You know, and so if you're getting like word for word like copyrighted material, then I think the liability first and foremost would go to Microsoft itself.
Oh, that's an interesting question. So if you say ChatGPT,
because here's the thing, ChatGPT's responses do not come with citations. That's what makes it different from Wikipedia.
Right.
And so if a student of mine misuses ChatGPT and just tells ChatGPT to write an 8-minute oratory and then presents that oratory in class, I'm not going to say, hey, that sounds like ChatGPT, so you get an F. I'm going to say, hey, you didn't cite any sources in that speech, so you get an F. Like it's so
how do you source the sources for?
True. That's what I was just about to ask.
Well, for Wikipedia, what you would do is you would go to the bottom and you would find out where the source is, and you would trace it back to its original source, right?
Right.
And that's how you would find the source. For ChatGPT, you can ask it. You can say, what are your citations? And it will tell you.
Agree.
But in the initial answer that you get, you do not get citations. Yeah. And in the citations that you get when you ask, it still is kind of like it doesn't tell you which particular line of answer. It just says, here's the 4 books that I drew from, or articles or whatever that I drew from. And you still have to like kind of figure out like which parts of it came from which.
So let me sort of...
It's not perfect yet.
Yeah, let me expand on this a little bit. And when it comes to like personal liability, it's like this machine learning AI is a tool, and it is literally what you do with it and the intent that makes it a crime. Sort of like 3D printing. If a kind of weapon is illegal and you use a 3D printer to make that weapon, that like it is your intent and your actions that make that thing real, and it is like your fully automatic weapon that is a crime. Osiris's example, like it is you and your discernment that makes like, oh yeah, that doesn't look real, I'm gonna like juice it up a little bit. Yeah,
but that's a little different. Like
that makes it a crime.
Oh, no, hold on. I literally did what you asked. As of now, the issue of intellectual property rights for works created by artificial intelligence is still a complex and evolving area of law that varies from country to country. In general, most jurisdictions recognize that copyright protection is available to works that are original and created by a human author. Since AI systems are not human beings, they are not considered to be authors in the traditional sense and cannot hold copyrights in their own right. However, if the output of an AI system is created at the direction of a human user or is in part collaboration between AI system and a human, then the human user or collaborator could potentially claim ownership of the resulting work. The specifics of the ownership and legal rights to the work created by the AI are still being debated and will likely be influenced by factors such as the level of human involvement in the creation process, the nature of the work, and the intent behind its creation. In short, it's complicated and evolving.
And where does the training set come from? Where does the training set
that doesn't answer the core question. It answers whether or not, like, in between ChatGPT and its user, like, where the responsibility lies. It answers that question. But it doesn't answer the question of whatever ChatGPT is lifting from, if that's copyrighted, who bears the responsibility?
That's a great question. So could an author sit there and be like, yo, I want to sue Microsoft, and they go and type up like, hey, can you tell me this entire story of Huckleberry Finn or whatever the fuck you want to call it? I don't know what fucking book. I don't know why the fuck that.
Isn't there some amount that has to be lifted? Like it can't just be 3 words because of how common those 3 words appear in anything.
I'm not an IP.
Fair use would apply.
It's okay. So here's the thing. So let's say you went to ChatGPT and you said, "Give me the complete first chapter of The Sorcerer's Stone."
Sure,
I bet it would say no.
Verbatim. It'd probably say no, but the point is, if it said yes and it gave it to you, then yes, she could sue the creators of ChatGPT for copyright infringement. Correct?
The person who asked it to do that, and the person who provides
they lifted it from copyrighted material without a permission.
Well, both.
But exactly. That's like if I ask to buy illegal drugs from somebody, I'm still equally as guilty of a different crime for like soliciting that, and then also somebody trying to sell it to me.
And even that gets a little more complicated because, like, I help run a website that lists many, like, science fiction and fantasy books. And we have excerpts of books, including entire first chapters or entire multiple chapters on our site. But, of course, we go and look and make sure that the publisher allows. We ask the publishers for these excerpts. They give us permission for those excerpts. So if Microsoft does that same kind of legwork, which I can imagine an AI like learning how to do, goes to publishers on a regular basis and say, hey, what parts of this book can I reproduce in case somebody asks? And the publisher says, okay, the first 3 chapters are fair game. George R. R. Martin, no, wait. Robert Jordan used to do this, where the first 3 chapters were free and you could read them, and then then once you're hooked, you go buy his book. So
Lee Childs does the same thing.
Yeah, so the AI goes in, figures out what the rules are for any given publisher, for any given author, and then allows those to pass through the filter into its database, but not the rest of the book.
Right. Like, and by the way, you can actually look at ChatGPT's code. Most publishers have these as digital certificates on a server, and it actually accesses that through API callbacks from their servers. So yes, it is actively doing this as we speak.
And we're going to come up to sort of like license terms for AIs, and computer scientists have been doing this for a long time. And you'll find this completely hilarious. There's actually databases and code written to determine what movies you can show on an airplane based on what airspace you're in. So like the minute if you're watching Queer as Folk and you're flying over Saudi Arabia, the minute you go over Saudi airspace, it turns off. and then turns back on when you leave their
or switches to something else. Yeah,
right.
And it's an AI that's been controlling that for over a decade.
Oh, it's not an AI. This is a deterministic database that says these spatial coordinates, you cannot watch gay content. And we're gonna come into this when it comes to like the sourcing of data and the origination of intellectual property is gonna become like this airspace calculation of what terms arrive with the generated thing. And you can say, well, give me a piece of art that I can claim as my original work and sell for commercial purposes. It is now going to be the next iteration, I think, of the AI, the machine learning AI products.
I wonder if there's an altitude limit to that. So like if you're on the moon and the moon passes over Saudi Arabia.
Yes, there is. It's some number I forget. I'm not going to bullshit it, but I'm breaking in to say that I got to go
220 miles. It's the orbital path. It is the orbital path above each
I wanted to get my fancy point out before I go out. So thank you very much. My name is Carl Soyaddle. That's like Seattle. Take out the C, add in some soy. Find me here on twitch.tv/Soyaddle. Or tomorrow, I'm not broadcasting. I'm taking a couple of weeks off of my show that is usually on YouTube at the Eco-Modernist channel, aka Eco-Modernist Society of North America, almost every Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much, everyone. Great conversation.
It's great to have you. By the way, who gave you permission to leave? That's the real question I got here.
Blah.
Exactly.
Don't tread on me. Rah, 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 rah. That's it. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to raid Tiberius. Oh, boy. Let's go. There we go. Dashboard. My stream looks terrible right now. All right. Enjoy. PyProd, I guess you're the only one left. Thanks so much for checking it out.